The first date of Badriya with her new lover, Walid. Decorating and furnishing the house. Four girls worked together to decorate the house for Badriya's new boyfriend. They even smuggled furniture and utensils from their own homes. Badriya has also shifted half of her house's furniture, including chairs, tables, couches, chandelier, artificial flowers and roses, bed sheets, etc., to the deserted house of her blind grandmother Amona Sit al-Banat. Collaborative effort. They spent 2 days paving the way for Badriya's first date, motivated by her promise that they could later use the abandoned house for their own romances. Advice and guidance. During a lunch break, Badriya received advice from her friends, especially Hanan Habibullah, who was portrayed as experienced in romantic matters, having had multiple relationships over 5 years. Hanan considered herself highly experienced in romantic matters. She had a history of multiple love relationships and believed this gave her authority to guide Badriya. Here are the key points of Hanan's advice. Create anticipation. When your new lover arrives, do not rush to open the door. Let him knock for at least 5 minutes. According to Hanan, this delay will instill a sense of fear and longing in his heart, making him desire you more. Don't worry about him leaving. Hanan reassured Badriya that no true lover would give up easily. If he walks away, he will likely return, so patience is part of the strategy. Hanan's advice reflects her belief in using psychological tactics to heighten romantic interest based on her own experiences in love affairs. Here's a summary of Hanan's background and qualifications based on the novel. Name: Hanan Habibullah. Experience: she is described as having 5 years of experience in romantic relationships, which she considers to be her main qualification for giving advice on love and relationships. Personal history: during those 5 years, she had 6 different lovers. 2 left her. She cheated on 2 others. 1 lover tragically committed suicide after she left him for another. Expertise: Hanan believes this extensive personal experience qualifies her to advise others on matters of romance and emotional relationships. Her qualifications are not academic or professional, but rather based on her personal experiences in love and relationships, which she uses to guide her girlfriends. Here's an expanded character profile for Hanan based on the context of the text. Character profile of Hanan. Full name: Hanan Habibullah, surname not specified. Age: mid-20s to early 30s, adjust as per narrative context. Background and heritage. Comes from a traditional Muslim family with strong cultural and religious values. Likely raised in an environment where obedience and family honor are emphasized. Personality traits. Resilient. Despite societal and familial pressures, Hanan demonstrates inner strength and determination. Empathetic. Shows compassion towards others, even when facing personal struggles. Conflicted. Torn between personal desires and obligations imposed by cultural norms. Intelligent and reflective, often contemplates the meaning of obedience and autonomy, suggesting a thoughtful nature. Appearance. Modest attire, reflecting cultural expectations. Physical description includes expressive eyes and a calm demeanor, symbolizing inner turmoil beneath a composed exterior. Motivations. Seeks balance between faith, tradition, and personal freedom. Desires respect and understanding rather than blind compliance. Challenges. Navigates patriarchal expectations within marriage. Faces societal judgment for asserting individuality. Relationships. Spouse. Central to the conflict, dynamic relationship revolves around obedience and authority. Family. Strong influence, possibly reinforcing traditional roles. Community. Acts as both a support system and a source of pressure. Character arc. Begins as compliant and reserved, gradually evolves into someone who questions norms and asserts agency. Her journey reflects themes of identity, autonomy, and resilience against systemic expectations. Let's imagine how Badriya's girlfriends, living within the same restrictive social environment, might actively help her prepare for her romantic meeting with her new lover Walid Hamza. Their support would be both practical and symbolic, turning friendship into a quiet act of resistance. Girlfriend's active role in preparation. 1. Emotional encouragement. They reassure Badriya, calming her nerves and reminding her that love is worth the risk. They share whispered stories of their own secret crushes, creating solidarity and easing her fear of being judged. 2. Practical assistance. Clothing and appearance. One friend lends her a scarf or dress that balances modesty with subtle elegance. Another helps her apply kohl eyeliner or lipstick in a way that can be hidden if questioned. Perfume and accessories. They pull together small luxuries, a vial of perfume or a bracelet, to give Badriya confidence. 3. Strategic planning. They help her craft an alibi, suggesting excuses she can use if family members ask where she's going. They map out safe routes to the meeting place, pointing out areas where she can blend in or avoid suspicion. 4. Symbolic acts of resistance. By helping her, the girlfriends themselves defy patriarchal control. Their collective effort transforms the meeting into more than romance. It becomes a shared rebellion. They treat the preparation like a ritual, celebrating Badriya's courage as if she were stepping into battle, but with love as her weapon. Dramatic staging, if imagined as a scene. Lighting cue, a dimly lit room, with a single lantern casting shadows as the girls huddle together. Soundscape, whispered laughter, the rustle of fabric, the clink of perfume bottles. Emotional beat. Badriya stands in the center, nervous but glowing, while her girlfriends orbit around her like protectors, each gesture layering her with confidence. In essence, her girlfriend's help is not just about beauty or logistics, it's about collective empowerment, turning a private romantic act into a shared declaration of freedom. Here's a reconstructed dialogue scene that captures Badriya's girlfriends, helping her prepare for her romantic meeting with Walid Hamza. I've staged it with a touch of theatrical flair, so you can feel the camaraderie and tension. Scene: the secret preparation. Setting: a dimly lit bedroom in Gadaref. A single lantern flickers. The girls huddle around Badriya, who sits nervously on the edge of her bed. Scarves, perfume bottles, and bits of jewelry are scattered across the floor. Amina, playful, whispering, "Badriya, if you keep biting your lip like that, Walid will think you're too nervous to kiss him." Samira, teasing, holding up a scarf, "Try this one. It's modest enough for the street, but the color will make your eyes shine. Trust me, he won't look away." Huda, serious, adjusting Badriya's hair, "Remember, if anyone asks, you're going to visit your cousin. Keep your story straight. Love is sweet, but lies must be sweeter tonight." Badriya, blushing, clutching her hands, "I feel like my heart is louder than the lantern. What if someone hears it?" Amina, laughing softly, "Then let them hear. A heart that beats for love is stronger than all their verdicts of obedience." Samira, spritzing perfume on Badriya's wrist, "There. Just a hint. Enough for Walid to notice when he leans close, but not enough for your mother to scold you when you return." Huda, handing her a notebook, "Write down how you feel after tonight. One day, these words will remind you that you dared to live." Badriya, smiling nervously, "You make it sound like I'm going to war." Amina, grinning, squeezing her hand, "In this world, love is war. But tonight, you're armed with beauty, courage, and us." Emotional beat. Lighting cue. The lantern flickers brighter as Badriya stands, wrapped in her scarf, transformed from trembling girl to radiant rebel. Soundscape. The soft rustle of fabric, muffled laughter, and the distant hum of the city outside. Final image. Her girlfriends encircle her, a protective sisterhood, making her like a bride in the deserted house of her blind grandmother, with courage stitched into every gesture. This scene shows how friendship becomes resistance. Their teasing, encouragement, and practical help turn Badriya's private romance into a collective act of defiance. Internal monologue. Hanan's thoughts. Why does obedience have to define my worth? Every word in that verdict feels like a chain tightening around me. I've given so much, my time, my care, my loyalty, and yet it seems none of that matters unless I bow completely. Is this justice or just tradition disguised as law? I wonder if anyone sees the fear behind my silence, the questions I dare not speak aloud. They say obedience brings harmony, but what about my voice, my dreams? Must they vanish for peace to exist? If I comply, will I lose myself entirely? And if I resist, what then? The weight of expectation presses harder than any punishment. I'm torn between duty and dignity, and I don't know which will break first. Badriya's situation when she fears her lover will not come is portrayed as deeply anxious and emotionally conflicted. She is consumed by jealousy and desperation, which drives her to seek help from Hajj Muhammad, a sorcerer known for black magic. In this tense moment, Badriya and her mother visit him to perform a ritual intended to separate Intisar from Sami, because Badriya and her brother Omar cannot bear the thought of their half-sister marrying the son of the richest man in the city. Her fear manifests in several ways. Emotional turmoil. Badriya feels powerless and terrified that her hopes of being with Walid will collapse. This fear pushes her into superstition and manipulation, showing how fragile and vulnerable she is when love seems unattainable. Dependence on magic. Instead of confronting reality, she clings to the belief that a ritual can change her fate. She chooses a punishment for Intisar from Daldum's Black Book, hoping to create great confusion in Intisar's relationship with Sami. This act reflects Badriya's desperation and moral compromise. Sense of urgency. Her behavior suggests that she cannot imagine life without Walid's love. The looming possibility that he will not come fills her with dread, compelling her to take drastic, unethical steps. In short, Badriya's fear of abandonment transforms her into a figure of vulnerability and obsession, willing to embrace dark practices to regain control over her romantic destiny. The heavy silence of the room pressed against her like an invisible weight. A single oil lamp flickered on the low table, casting long shadows that danced across the cracked plaster walls. She sat rigidly on the edge of the worn divan, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles gleamed white. Outside, the wind carried the distant call to prayer, a haunting melody that seemed to echo her own turmoil. He stood by the doorway, his figure framed by the dim glow, eyes sharp and unyielding. The air between them was taut, charged with centuries of expectation and law. His voice, when it came, was low but firm, each syllable deliberate, like the measured strike of a gavel. "Love," he said, as though the word itself were a verdict carved in stone. Her breath caught. In that moment, the world narrowed to the space between them, the clash of love and desire, faith and freedom. She felt the weight of tradition pressing against her chest, yet somewhere deep within, a spark of defiance stirred, fragile but alive. Badriya's reaction when Walid Hamza arrives at her grandmother's house is layered with secrecy, anticipation, and emotional intensity. Planning the meeting. Before the visit, Badriya is eager and cooperative. She quickly writes down her grandmother's address for Walid, ensuring it is correct, and hands it to him. This shows her willingness and excitement about their secret rendezvous, despite the risks involved. Emotional turmoil during the encounter. On their initial first meeting when Walid comes to her house, the situation becomes tense. Badriya's mother interrupts before she can even reveal her name to Walid, scolding her for speaking to a stranger without permission. This intrusion shocks Badriya and disrupts the romantic mood, leaving her caught between fear of family honor and her feelings for Walid. Aftermath and vulnerability. Later, Badriya experiences deep sadness and cries not only for her lover but more for her brother's troubles. Walid comforts her, and this moment shifts from fear to intimacy. She lays her head on his chest and eventually responds to his kisses with passion, signaling her acceptance of their bond despite the surrounding chaos. Here's a dramatic scene for Badriya and Walid's meeting. Scene: the courtyard at dusk. The sun dipped low, painting the courtyard in hues of amber and crimson. Badriya stood near the fountain, her veil trembling slightly in the evening breeze. Her heart pounded like a drum, each beat echoing the weight of choices yet to be made. From the archway, Walid emerged, his silhouette sharp against the fading light. His steps were deliberate, heavy with the gravity of unspoken words. For a moment, neither spoke, only the distant call of a muezzin filled the silence. Badriya's voice broke first, soft but edged with steel. "You came." Waleed's eyes, dark and searching, locked onto hers. I had to. There are truths that cannot remain buried. She turned slightly, fingers grazing the cool marble of the fountain. Truths? Or chains you wish to bind me with? Waleed stepped closer, the tension between them taut as a bowstring. Chains? No, Badriya. I seek only what was promised, what is owed. Her laughter was bitter, a fragile thing that shattered in the air. Owed? You speak of obedience as if it were a coin to be traded. But I am no merchant of my soul. The wind stirred, carrying the scent of jasmine and something heavier, destiny. Waleed's jaw tightened, his voice dropping to a whisper that trembled with fury and longing. Then tell me, what am I to you? A tyrant? Or the man who would burn the world just to keep you safe? Badriya met his gaze, her eyes glistening like twin blades. You are the storm, Waleed. And I am the sea that refuses to drown. Excerpts from the first date of Badriya and Waleed. So, the beautiful Badriya is finally groomed for her handsome lover, Waleed Hamza. After that, the three friends wished her to have a good time with her new boyfriend and said goodbye. When Badriya was left alone, her mind filled with many thoughts. First, she thought of her new lover. There is no doubt that he is a handsome and educated person. But how could he be a good man and have a friend like her brother, who is a criminal and drunkard? Therefore, her mind concluded that he is not a good man. But how could a bad guy speak politely while talking to her that day? Moreover, she compared him to the monster gorilla man Shakash that broke into her house shortly before Waleed came. They appeared to her as a demon of death and an angel of love. Therefore, her mind rejected the idea that Waleed is a bad guy. Second, she thought about her bad brother Omar. She started thinking of him. If Waleed does not know the evils of Omar, what will his reaction be when he finds out? The first answer that occurred to her was that he would renounce his friendship with her. Even if he agrees to continue his friendship, his family will not accept her as their son's wife. No family would want to have an evil son-in-law. She decided to hide her brother's evils. Badriya suddenly looked at her watch. It is 7:15 p.m. Her heart became restless, and the question that every girl would ask in such a situation arose in her mind. Will he come after all? Then she got to her feet. Her heart started beating fast. She walked out of the room. She started walking aimlessly around the house. She stopped and looked at her watch again. It is 7:25 p.m. She continued walking again. Then she stopped and looked at her watch. At 7:45 p.m., she resumed her walk. She began sweating and shaking. Looked again at her watch. Time is over. It is 8 p.m. sharp. Her throat choked and her body began to shiver. She stared at her watch again. He is 75 minutes late. Badriya started crying. Tears filled her eyes. She slowly walked towards the decorated room, entered and sat on a chair. She put her hands over her face and started crying loudly. At the same time, the good citizen Waleed Hamza started knocking on the outside door. The more she cried louder, her new lover knocked on her outer door harder. Then Waleed stopped knocking and looked at his watch. It is 8:30 p.m. He decided to walk down the street and back again. Badriya cried until she got tired. She wiped her tears and looked at her watch. It is 8:40 p.m. She decided to go home. Looked at her face in the mirror. She saw her tears had ruined all her makeup. Anyway, it didn't bother her anymore. She turned off all the lights and walked towards the outer door. When she reached the door, she angrily opened it and walked straight into her lover's arms. When Badriya realized she was embracing Waleed on the street, she pulled him inside and closed the door. Again, they hugged each other. This time it is an extraordinarily long hug. All her tears, fears, and disappointment disappeared, and in their place love, joy, and hope arose. Her lover pulled his hands from her waist and brought them to her cheeks. He saw her face full of joy. Her eyes are also full of love. She is hot and gorgeous. Waleed said that it is a beautiful coincidence tonight that there will be a full moon in the middle of the sky. Badriya said, "Yes, let's go into the room. I would like to sit with you under the bright moonlight and see your beautiful face reflect its silver rays." She became shy and looked down. On their first date, Waleed asks Badriya to choose between her brother Omar and the truth because he wants her to confront the reality of Omar's crimes and decide where her loyalty lies. In the passage, Waleed reveals that Omar is guilty of heinous acts, including kidnapping and rape, and even facilitating 2 forced marriages of his half-sisters Intisar and Firdaus through corruption and abuse of power. Waleed positions himself as the good citizen who wants to report Omar's crimes to the police, contrasting his pursuit of justice with Omar's criminality. This ultimatum reflects a moral dilemma. Badriya must either continue defending her brother out of family loyalty or acknowledge the truth about his actions and align with justice. Waleed's insistence, "Now you have to choose between me and your brother," underscores the tension between personal ties and ethical responsibility. It also shows Waleed's emotional involvement, as he is romantically interested in Badriya and wants her to reject Omar's corrupt influence in favor of honesty and righteousness. Excerpts from the confrontation of the lover Waleed to his beloved Badriya about her wrongdoings and her brother's criminal misdeeds. "Badriya," says Waleed, "before we go forward with our love, can I ask you some important questions?" "Yes, you can." "I want to ask you about your family." Badriya's heart was now filled with fear. She remained silent. "When I came to your house that day, I found your brother Omar terribly ill. May I know what happened to him?" "He had a car accident. But he said in the Sharia court anyway that he had been beaten by some of his enemies who kidnapped him at 4 a.m. from in front of the Grand Mosque." Badriya's heart began to beat faster when Waleed confronted her with her first lie. "Do you believe what your brother told the judge in the Sharia court?" "Yes, I must believe my brother. However, I know exactly what happened to him." Badriya wanted to speak, but her voice let her down. "My dear Badriya, if you want us to move forward in our love, you must be open and clear with me." The new girlfriend bowed her head and remained silent. Tears started falling from her beautiful eyes. "Your brother Omar is not living properly. His crime is not small. It is a crime punishable by death. He ruined the life of an innocent girl. If he is not punished or deterred, he will continue to destroy the lives of other innocent girls." Badriya started crying loudly. Waleed waited a while and continued talking. "I am the one who reported the heinous crime of kidnapping and rape your brother committed with the monster Al-Washa's gang to the police." Waleed waited for a while and continued talking again. "Now you have to choose between me and your brother. What do you want me to do?" The sister of the 6th criminal, the magician Omar, asked angrily. "Do you want me to betray my brother for you?" "I didn't say you should do that. Your brother will be handed over to the police very soon. Are you a spy or an undercover cop?" "I am neither a spy nor a policeman. I am the good citizen who reported your brother's hideous crime to the police." "Why did you come to my house? Why didn't you go directly to the police and reveal my brother's hiding place?" "I first went to the police inspector in charge of the crime, but he turned out to be a corrupt policeman. The wealthy business tycoon Mr. Osman Al-Taib had bribed him and released your brother from the crime." "Why did you come to my house if you knew all that?" "I had come to your house to force your brother to confess his involvement in the crime of kidnapping and rape and to obtain his confessions, in writing, about the crime and bribery." "Why didn't you go and hand over his confession papers to the police authority?" "I couldn't do that because your brother's crime was committed against an innocent person." "Who is this innocent person?" "His name is Shakash Wad Al-Haram. That ugly gorilla man is not an innocent person. He is also a criminal and was arrested recently." "How did you know that?" "His savage gang leader Al-Wash sent him to my brother. The police arrested him near my house." "Whatever he is not the 6th hiding criminal who is known as the magician. And that magician is your brother Omar. Therefore, Shakash was not one of the 6 criminals who kidnapped and raped the innocent girl." "How did you know that the hammer Shakash was not one of the 6 criminals?" "I witnessed the whole crime, and I know who the criminals are." "How can you call yourself a good citizen and go to a brothel, a local liquor bar, and a house full of cheap Sudanese whores and dirty Abyssinian sluts?" "Yes, I admit my mistake. I drink alcohol and sometimes commit adultery with a prostitute. But I am not a criminal like your brother and his gang members." "Where are my brother's confessions?" "The confession papers were handed over to a lawyer." He will file a complaint against Inspector Hussein, Mr. Osman Al-Taib, and your brother Omar." When Badriya heard these last words, she began to cry. Walid remained silent. She kept crying for a long time. She cried for her brother more than she cried for her lover. Then Walid approached her and comforted her. She laid her head on his chest and continued to cry. "Badriya, I know you are a good girl. It is normal for you to grieve for your brother. But you must overcome your emotions. I promise I will never leave you." Badriya stopped crying. Walid grabbed her face in his hands and started kissing her lips. She responded and began to kiss him too with strong passion. When he realized that she had accepted this fact, he stopped kissing her. "I'm glad you didn't cancel our new friendship. You are the first person who opened my eyes to the truth and filled my heart with love," she said to him. "Now, Badriya, since your eyes are open to the truth, I want to ask you another question." "What's your new question?" "Did you know that your criminal brother Omar is guilty of yet another kidnapping and rape?" "What is his other crime?" "His first crime was with the Beast Alwash and his gang, and the second was with Said Osman Al-Taib and his gang." "I cannot understand what you mean by my brother's second offense." "Omar had helped Mr. Osman Al-Taib marry his half-sister Firdos without her consent, and this vile old man had justified his evil deeds through the Sharia court and also used the power of the police to kidnap her from her home and take her to him as a captive runaway wife. His work is no different from the evil deeds of the jihadi Muslim terrorists of ISIS who kidnapped and raped Iraqi Yazidi girls. Most likely by now he had brutally raped her. And now he is imprisoning her somewhere. This is not a crime. It's just a family problem." "How can you call it just a family problem?" "They forced two innocent sisters to marry people they didn't like. Intisar and Firdas are not innocent girls. They are unbelievably bad girls. In fact, they spoiled my father's name. Is it a crime to fall in love? But they go out with the boys, go to the movies, and go to parties. They even traveled with their lovers to Khartoum City and stayed with them in the same hotel. I've seen pictures of them hugging and kissing those boys in public and in broad daylight. This means that they allowed them to have sex with them before marriage. Do you still call them decent, moral girls?" "I have known Intisar and Firdas for many years. I've never seen them travel with bad guys. They have boyfriends and they both want to marry their lovers. But why did they allow those bad boys to kiss them in public? Now you love me, and you allowed me to kiss you. Neither our love nor our kissing is a shameful act. Am I right, Badriya?" "Yes, you are absolutely right." "How did you get to know my sisters, Intisar and Firdas?" "I live near their house. But those sisters and their mother Sarah have long been our bitter enemies." "They are not your enemies. They are good girls. Omar and his second gang have abused them and done them a lot of evils. I know the choice is hard for you. Since childhood you have been told that they are your enemies because their mother is a rival wife to your mother due to polygamy. That is why you did not hesitate to go with your mother Sakina to the evil witch doctor, Hajj Muhammad, and paid him money to spoil the friendship of Intisar and Sami." When Walid confronted Badriya with the second truth, she burst into tears again. He waited for her to cry out in pain that disturbed her conscience. "Now is the time for you to repent of what you have done and go and ask your sisters for forgiveness." "Do you think they will forgive me?" "Yes, they will forgive you. Believe me, Walid, I never felt that what I did to them was wrong until you opened my eyes to the truth today. So, from today, wash your hands of the wicked old man Mr. Osman and his gang, and take the side of your innocent sisters. The gang meets at our house as we chat now." "What is the purpose of their meeting?" "I don't know exactly, but it's probably about the marriages of Firdas and Intisar. If you want to prove to me that you have completely repented and departed from your old, wicked way, then find out what they are gathered for and come and tell me. I will do that for you. I will meet you tomorrow at 10 in the morning at Intisar's house." "Agreed, my love." After that, the handsome lover took his beautiful beloved's face in his hands and looked into her eyes. He saw that many tears had cleansed her mind of all malice and bitterness. He could also see how his love filled her heart. So, he started kissing her. She responded to him with a new passion. During that wonderful time, the new lovers spent a lot of time hugging and kissing. And the evil girl turned into an angelic girl, whose heart and mind are filled with new waves of true repentance and love. After her genuine repentance, the beloved Badriya tells her lover Walid about the emergency meeting of the conspirators in her house because she wants to demonstrate her repentance and loyalty to her half-sisters Intisar and Firdas. She has now realized the harm she caused to her innocent sisters by siding with Mr. Osman Al-Taib and his gang. When Walid confronts her with the truth of her past actions, she breaks down and admits her guilt. Walid urges her to wash your hands of the wicked old man Mr. Osman and his gang and take the side of your innocent sisters. In response, Badriya reveals that the gang is meeting at their house at that very moment, likely to discuss the marriages of Firdas and Intisar. This disclosure becomes her way of proving that she has abandoned her old, deceitful ways and is ready to help thwart the conspirators' plans. Here's a summary of what Badriya overheard at the emergency meeting. Unusual chairperson. The meeting was chaired by a young woman who claimed to be married to another woman. This shocked Badriya, as same-sex marriage was not legal in Sudan. The chairperson even mentioned leaving her wife during their honeymoon to attend this urgent meeting. Purpose of the meeting. The woman explained that the meeting was critical because their lives and reputations were at stake. She accused certain wicked and adulterous boys and girls of resorting to extortion after losing in the Sharia court. Targeting Walid, the conspirators cursed Walid Hamza, calling him deceitful and evil. They claimed he had pretended to be a good citizen and directed the police to uncover a kidnapping and rape crime, which forced Omar to write 2 confessions, one admitting involvement in the crime and another implicating others. Speculation about Osman Al-Taib. Lawyer Sulla later guessed that the woman might be Osman Al-Taib's secretary speaking on his behalf because Osman had lost his voice, and all agreed this was plausible. Tone and urgency. The chairperson emphasized secrecy and urgency, saying the matter was so pressing that she abandoned her honeymoon. She portrayed the situation as a fight for survival and honor. The friends initially debated what to do with the 2 confession papers written by Omar and the secretly recorded confession of Hajj Muhammad. Frida suggested handing them over to the police or newspapers, but Sulla, the lawyer, advised caution. He explained that they should not rush because everything was still based on assumptions and needed verification. Instead of immediate exposure, Sulla recommended gathering more information to strengthen their case. Later, these documents became crucial evidence. Sulla eventually presented both Omar's confession papers and the recorded tape of Hajj Muhammad's confession in court, alongside other supporting materials. Here's a concise summary of Hajj Muhammad's confession based on the novel. How the confession was obtained. Frida, sister of Intisar and Firdas, visited Hajj Muhammad's home undercover, posing as an ordinary visitor named Siham. She carried a small detective tape recorder hidden in her handbag and recorded the entire conversation without revealing her identity. Key admissions. Hajj Muhammad confessed to being the mastermind behind 2 fraudulent marriage plots. Intisar was forced to marry Hassan. Firdas was forced to marry Mr. Osman Al-Taib. He admitted receiving bribes from influential figures, including Hassan's father and Osman Al-Taib. The marriages were not conducted in a mosque, as claimed, but in a private office. Role and motives. He exploited his religious authority and reputation as a witch doctor to legitimize these unlawful unions. His motives included greed, lust, and alliances with powerful men such as Osman Al-Taib and Majub Al-Hilali. Impact. The recorded confession became a critical piece of evidence for lawyer Sulla in court, alongside other documents. Here's a summary of Omar's confession details based on the text. Key points from Omar's confessions. Heinous crime. Omar admitted being sent by Osman Mahmoud Al-Ajaba, a.k.a. Al-Wash, with 4 others to kidnap a teenage girl near her school. Al-Wash planned the crime, provided a stolen car, and later organized a lavish wedding with the kidnapped girl, Mona Sulla el-Din Hashim. After the forced wedding, Al-Wash consummated the marriage and then forced Omar and the other boys to assault the girl. 2 written confession papers. First paper detailed Omar's involvement in the kidnapping and rape. Second paper stated that Omar was arrested and released due to a large bribe paid to Inspector Hussein by Osman Al-Taib and associates. Additional revelations. Omar confirmed bribery and corruption involving police and wealthy figures. Here's a comparison of the two confessions based on the story. Omar's confessions. Nature of confession. Omar was blackmailed into writing two separate confession papers. First paper, he admitted his involvement in the kidnapping and rape of an innocent schoolgirl, Mona Salah Eldin Hashim. Second paper, he revealed that his release from Inspector Hussein was secured through a large bribe paid collectively by influential figures, Osman Al-Taib, Mahjoub Al-Hilali, Maulana Sheikh Marzouk, and Hajj Muhammad. Hajj Muhammad's confession. Nature of confession. His confession was secretly recorded by Frida using a detective tape. He admitted being the mastermind behind two sinister plots, including false marriages, using black magic, hypnosis, and deceit to manipulate victims and their families. His close association with Osman Al-Taib and Mahjoub Al-Hilali in these schemes. Key differences. Scope of crimes. Omar's crimes were direct, kidnapping and rape, while Hajj Muhammad's were systemic and manipulative, false marriages, black magic, orchestrating plots. Role in plots. Omar was a participant. Hajj Muhammad was the mastermind. Here's a structured summary of the moral and psychological profiles drawn from the novel. Intisar Ibrahim Mustafa Jaber. Moral profile. Opposes forced marriage and patriarchy, prioritizes autonomy, love, and justice. Displays moral courage by resisting coercion and later embracing Christianity as a liberation act. Psychological profile. Suffers severe trauma, forced marriage, imprisonment, sexual violence. Oscillates between despair and resilience, ultimately transforms into a defiant, assertive woman. Experiences identity conflict and survivor's guilt, but maintains hope and faith. Sami Osman Al-Taib. Moral profile. Advocates equality and love, defies family and societal norms. Conversion to Christianity is driven by passion rather than conviction, reflecting moral ambiguity. Psychological profile. Emotionally volatile and obsessive, struggles with guilt and fear of exposure. Displays romantic idealism, but suffers from depression and suicidal ideation during crises. Firdas Ibrahim Mustafa Jaber. Moral profile. Rejects coercion and child marriage, asserts bodily autonomy. Her resistance is morally clear but tragically punished by systemic forces. Psychological profile. Endures extreme trauma, rape, torture, oscillates between rage and hopelessness. Displays suicidal tendencies as a last resort to preserve honor. Hassan Mahjoub Al-Hilali. Moral profile. Embodies patriarchal entitlement, justifies coercion and rape under religious pretext. Morally bankrupt, manipulative, and violent. Psychological profile. Obsessive and sadistic, equates dominance with masculinity. Collapses into desperation and aggression when control slips. Osman Al-Taib. Moral profile. Hypocritical and corrupt, uses religion and wealth to legitimize crimes. Mastermind of forced marriages, rape, and systemic abuse. Psychological profile. Narcissistic, sadistic, and paranoid, obsessed with control and revenge. Displays psychopathic traits and extreme misogyny. Supporting figures. Frida, morally courageous, resourceful and justice-driven, psychologically resilient, and strategic. Susan and Maria, exhibit altruism and faith-driven morality, psychologically oscillate between despair and hope, showing resilience through spiritual conviction. Religious authorities, morally compromised, uphold misogynistic laws under guise of divine sanction, psychologically rigid and authoritarian. Core themes across profiles. Victims, Intisar, Firdas, Mona. Moral purity, resilience under oppression, psychological scars from systemic violence. Male allies, Sami Salah. Progressive ideals, but vulnerable to emotional instability. Oppressors, Osman, Hassan, Omar. Moral depravity rooted in patriarchy. Psychological traits include narcissism, sadism, and paranoia. Faith and identity. Conversion and apostasy emerge as moral and psychological battlegrounds. Why does Walid suggest to the friends he can approach Omar's sister Badriya for help in uncovering the conspiracy of the secret emergency meeting? Walid's suggestion to approach Omar's sister, Badriya, is rooted in a combination of trust, influence, and strategic access. Trusted connection. Badriya is portrayed as someone with strong familial loyalty and discretion. Walid believes that involving her would minimize the risk of leaks and ensure the plan remains confidential. Influence within Omar's circle. As Omar's sister, Badriya has a natural position of influence. Walid anticipates that she can either persuade Omar directly or gain insight into his movements and intentions without raising suspicion. Access to sensitive information. The conspiracy surrounding the secret emergency meeting suggests that key details are tightly guarded. Badriya's proximity to Omar gives her unique access to conversations or documents that outsiders cannot obtain. Strategic leverage. Walid likely sees Badriya as a bridge between conflicting interests, someone who can mediate or extract information without triggering defensive reactions from Omar or his allies. Badriya could play a pivotal role in uncovering the conspiracy by leveraging a combination of observation, strategic alliances, and critical thinking. Here are some ways this could happen. 1. Gathering intelligence. Badriya might notice inconsistencies in behavior, documents, or conversations that others overlook. By paying attention to subtle clues, such as contradictory statements or unusual secrecy, she can start piecing together the bigger picture. 2. Building trust with key individuals. She could form alliances with people who have insider knowledge or access to restricted information. Through careful questioning and empathy, Badriya might encourage them to share details that expose hidden motives. 3. Analyzing patterns. Badriya could review timelines, financial records, or correspondence to identify patterns that suggest collusion. For example, repeated interactions between certain individuals at odd times might indicate covert planning. 4. Using her position strategically. If Badriya holds a role that grants her access to sensitive areas or documents, she can discreetly verify facts and cross-check evidence, ensuring that suspicions are backed by solid proof. 5. Exploiting weak links. Every conspiracy has vulnerabilities, such as overconfidence or poor coordination. Badriya could exploit these by asking probing questions or creating scenarios that force conspirators to reveal themselves. Here's a possible narrative draft for Badriya uncovering the conspiracy. Narrative. Badriya unveils the truth. She had always sensed that something was amiss. The whispers in the corridors, the sudden silences when she entered a room, and the guarded glances exchanged among those she trusted most, all of them gnawed at her instincts. Tonight, she decided the shadows would speak. She began her search in the dimly lit archives, where forgotten letters and decrees lay buried beneath layers of dust. Each parchment she unfolded revealed fragments of a story of betrayal woven into the fabric of her household. The words were veiled, but their meaning was clear. Obedience was not a virtue here, it was a weapon. As the pieces fell into place, Badriya's pulse quickened. The conspiracy was not a distant rumor, it was a living serpent coiled within her own walls. Names she revered were etched alongside plans of control, manipulation, and silence. The verdict of obedience was never about faith, it was about power. Her breath caught as she discovered the final proof, a sealed letter marked with the insignia of authority, detailing the scheme to strip her of agency under the guise of tradition. Rage and resolve surged within her. They had underestimated her, mistaking her silence for submission. With the evidence clenched in her hands, Badriya stepped out of the shadows. The night air was sharp, but her mind was sharper. Tomorrow, the conspirators will learn that obedience, when forced, breeds rebellion. And she would be its voice. Badriya manages to overhear the conspirators' conversation without being seen because her mother, Haja Sakina, instructs her to stand by the back window and listen quietly. From that position, Badriya can hear every word spoken inside the room, but she cannot see the speakers, and they cannot see her or even suspect her presence. She keeps her mouth busy chewing a sandwich while pressing her ear as close as possible to the window, ensuring she remains hidden while gathering the information. Excerpts from The Reason of the Delay of Hajj Muhammad. Immediately the gathered villains heard a loud voice of the mighty witch doctor, Hajj Muhammad, saluting the mother, Haja Sakina. Seconds later, the clean businessman introduced himself among the conspirators. With a big smile on his face, he said, "Please, my friends, forgive me for being late. It is not my fault nor anyone else's fault here." When he saw that every face was looking at him angrily, he sat down and continued his words. "Please, guys, first listen to my story, and then everyone can judge it. I finished with the last visitor at 7:30 p.m., half an hour before the usual closing time. Then I ran to the bathroom and took a quick shower. I got myself ready to leave my holy abode by 7:50 p.m. I took my car keys and walked to the outside door. As I was approaching the outer door, I heard a soft knock on it. I opened the door and looked outside. To my surprise, I saw the two richest and most beautiful teenage girls I had ever seen. One of them was 15 years old, just like the beautiful new bride of Syed Osman al-Taib, and of course, still an underage child, and the other girl was a teenager of 17, like the unbelievably beautiful bride of Hassan ibn al-Sayyid Majub al-Hilali. The 15-year-old girl's eyes filled with tears. She was adorned with gold and jewels from the top of her head to the soles of her feet. She was wearing expensive clothes and shoes just like a princess in Disneyland or a virgin descended from paradise. Her tender body diffuses pleasant foreign fragrances like those that come from India and Europe, massages and liqueurs like a new virgin Sudanese bride decked out for her honeymoon with her handsome groom in a 5-star hotel in the capital city. You know, my friends, I couldn't see a teenage girl crying, and my compassionate heart wouldn't cry with her. Therefore, I put my hands on her soft cheeks and wiped her tears. But more tears were falling like mid-autumn rain on her apple-like cheeks. So, my tender heart wept with her the most. Then her friend, who was not inferior to her in beauty and richness, said to me with her sweet voice that resembled the voice of the nightingale or cocoa bird, "Hajj Muhammad, please have mercy on Jamila. Her life or death is in your hands." I asked her, "My daughter, can you bring your girlfriend tomorrow morning? I promise I will receive her as the first visitor. I'm on my way to an emergency meeting with particularly important people. I can't postpone or cancel my visit. I am a man of good principles. One of my principles is keeping my promise." When I said that, Jamila fell to my feet and watered them with her tears. My heart melted inside of me. I knelt down and lifted her body off the ground. I looked at her lovely face and saw the pain and sadness in her beautiful eyes. Then she said to me in her feminine voice, which was like an angelic voice or a piece of nocturne, "It's better to kill me than to leave me in such pain." Those words touched my heart, and yet I reminded myself that I am a man, and when a man makes a promise, he must keep his words. I told her, "My little princess, I know you have great grief, but I also have an important appointment." Then her friend told me, "Hajj Muhammad, take us with you in your car. I know how to drive. I will drive your car. Sit in the back seat with Jamila and listen to her problem. She'll say it in a whisper because she doesn't want anyone else to know it." I told her, "My love, I am a famous man. On every street and corner in the city, I have friends and foes. What will they say when they see a sweet girl like you driving me, and in the back seat the most beautiful girl I've ever seen whispering in my ear?" When I said that, Jamila fell again to my feet and started crying loudly. If I left her in such agony and she went and killed herself, I said to myself, I would spend the rest of my decent, morally pure life with a troubled conscience. So, I took her by the waist and lifted her up like a groom carrying his bride on their first wedding night. When I told her I would solve her problem, she put her arms around my body and hugged me. She refused to remove them. I asked her girlfriend to persuade her to remove her hands. Her girlfriend tried, but Jamila refused to listen to her either. She told me, "I think she feels safe in your embrace." So, I flattered to put my arms around the pretty girl and hug her too. Then I led her to my private room and closed the door. Meanwhile, her girlfriend was sitting in the waiting room because Jamila did not want anyone to know about her insurmountable problem except me and God alone. We sat together on a large mattress. When we were alone, she opened her mouth and started telling me her invincible problem. The words came out of her mouth and entered my ears like soft music. We spent an hour together in a heart-to-heart talk. But all this time she did not take her hands off my waist and did not allow me to do so. When we had finished after I solved her insurmountable problem, her face started to shine like the face of an angel. Then she said to me, "Hajj Muhammad, I will divest myself of all the gold and jewels that I am wearing and give them to you. Even if you want my beautiful eyes and sexy body to be yours, I won't tell you no." I told her, "Don't do this now." Immediately I apologized, left them at my house, and rushed over here. The virtuous Imam Maulana Sheikh Marzik, who cares more about the story than the other conspirators, said to Hajj Muhammad, "Please explain to us the insurmountable problem of that young, beautiful, wealthy teenage girl, and how she took an hour of your precious time." Before the witch doctor answered the blessed Imam, they heard heavy knocking on the outer door. The mother opened the door. The assembled members waited to see who was running late. When no one appeared, Omar shouted at his mother and asked her about the new visitor. The mother, Sakina, replied, "This is your sister, Badriya. She just got back from her blind grandmother's house." At the same time, the wall clock struck 10 times, indicating that it is 10 o'clock at night. Haja Sakina scolded her daughter, Badriya, for being so late. After that, she ordered her to go and stand by the back window and listen to the conversation of the visitors, and after that she should come and report to her what they had said. The mother used to do this chore before her daughter came, but she felt relief from that difficult task. Badriya drank some water, snatched a large sandwich from the hands of their Eritrean maidservant, Zara, and ran to the window, substituting for her mother on the next night shift. With her mouth busy chewing the big sandwich, she put her ears as close as possible to hear the conspirators' conversation. From her position, she can hear every word spoken, but cannot see the speaker. Also, none of them can see her or know that she is spying on them. As her ears became attentive to their conversations, she heard a soft and sweet young woman's voice speaking in this way. Here's a concise summary of what Badriya overheard during the emergency meeting of the conspirators. Key points from the meeting. Unusual chairperson. The meeting was chaired by a young woman who claimed to be married to another woman, which shocked Badriya because same-sex marriage was illegal in Sudan. The woman even mentioned leaving her wife during their honeymoon to attend this urgent meeting. Purpose of the meeting. The chairperson stressed that the meeting was critical for their lives and reputations. She accused certain wicked and adulterous boys and girls of resorting to extortion after losing in the Sharia court. Targeting Walid. The conspirators cursed Walid Hamza, calling him deceitful and evil. They claimed he pretended to be a good citizen and directed the police to uncover a kidnapping and rape crime, which forced Omar to write 2 confessions, one admitting involvement and another implicating others. Violent outbursts. Badriya heard loud blows on the table and aggressive threats from the chairwoman, including obscene language and shocking statements about punishing the attendees of the meeting sexually for cowardice. The woman swore by God and the divorce of her other 3 wives that she would not release her 4th wife, Firdaus. Blackmail demands. The conspirators discussed 2 demands. 10 billion Sudanese pounds. Omar's sister as part of the sinister bargain. Atmosphere. The meeting was tense, with alternating silences and bursts of anger, threats, and curses. Badriya was deeply disturbed by the chairwoman's physical strength and domineering behavior, which seemed almost masculine. This disclosure by Badriya was pivotal. It proved her break from Mr. Osman's gang and helped her friends plan to thwart the conspirators' schemes regarding the forced marriages of Firdaus and Intisar. Excerpts from the secret meeting of the Gang of Villains. At the same time, the wall clock struck 10 times, indicating that it is 10 o'clock at night. Haja Sakina scolded her daughter, Badriya, for being so late. After that, she ordered her to go and stand by the back window and listen to the conversation of the visitors, and after that she should come and report to her what they had said. The mother used to do this chore before her daughter came, but she felt relief from that difficult task. Badriya drank some water, snatched a large sandwich from the hands of their Eritrean maidservant, Zara, and ran to the window, substituting for her mother on the next night shift. With her mouth busy chewing the big sandwich, she put her ears as close as possible to hear the conspirators' conversation. From her position, she can hear every word spoken, but cannot see the speaker. Also, none of them can see her or know that she is spying on them. As her ears became attentive to their conversations, she heard a soft and sweet young woman's voice speaking in this way. First of all, the woman shouted in her sweet voice, "You must know the reason for our emergency meeting. The matter we are going to discuss tonight and find a proper solution is so urgent that it compelled me to stop my honeymoon and leave my sweet and sexy wife alone in the hotel and rush here." Badriya was stunned when she heard that the woman claimed to have a beautiful and sexy wife. How can she have a sweet wife and go on a honeymoon with her? No possible answer to such a strange claim could be found by Badriya's bewildered mind. "My wife was incredibly angry with me," the female voice continued, "and told me she would rather be preferred to be divorced than be left alone in the hotel." Badriya is now fully convinced that the speaker is a woman who married another woman. However, her mind strongly rejected such a possibility because she knew that same-sex marriage had not yet been legalized in Sudan. "Although it happened, I took a risk and left my sweet wife alone in the hotel and came here. I expected you all to come here on time. But unfortunately, none of you showed up on time. I told Omar on the phone to tell everyone that the meeting is very urgent and particularly important and should start at 8 p.m. sharp. It is a matter of life and death for all of us. I had planned to report to the meeting in Gadaref City and be back in Khartoum City by 11:30 p.m. My new wife had warned me sternly that if the sun came up and she did not find me by her side, she would either force me to divorce her or she would never let me sleep with her again in the same bed. I booked a return ticket for the midnight flight to the capital city." Badriya listens intently to the woman's voice and in her mind tries to imagine what she would look like with her wife in bed. Then there was silence for 3 minutes. Badriya wondered what had happened. Yet again, she heard the woman's voice breaking the silence. This time the sound rose 5 times louder than before. The angry woman exclaimed, "Look at your watches. According to my watch, it is 10:15 p.m. This important meeting was supposed to start at 8 p.m. sharp. I just feel like getting up, canceling the meeting, going on my flight, returning to my beloved wife, and then letting each and every one of you go to jail tomorrow." Another 2 minutes of silence followed. Then the woman's voice continued to speak. "One of you said he came in late because he watched a TV series. Another person had to perform evening prayers in the largest mosque. Yet another one came 2 hours late because 2 beautiful teenage girls had captured his heart. All of these are ridiculous excuses and just show how irresponsible you guys are. One of you calls himself a political leader. Another is a religious leader. Another claims is that he is a social counselor. You are the people who are supposed to lead the country into the future. If you cannot show responsibility in such a small meeting, what will you do when you go to parliament in the capital city?" 3 more minutes of silence followed. Badriya quickly matched the words on her fingers. On the one hand, she counted the positions, and on the other, the names. Right hand. Left hand. Political leader. Mr. Majub al-Hilali. Religious leader. Maulana Sheikh Marzouk. Social counselor. Hajj Muhammad. Her matching result revealed that the most important conspirator was missing. Therefore, she concluded that the woman's sweet voice must be the voice of Mr. Osman al-Taib. But her mind immediately rejected such an impossible possibility. How could this gentle female voice be the harsh voice of the arrogant old geezer? The woman's voice interrupted her mind again. "Why should I bother about the future of the country when the citizens themselves put you in such important positions?" 2 more minutes of silence followed those words. Those minutes of rest created another mystery in Badriya's mind. Why does the sweet feminine voice every now and then have to stop talking for a few minutes? No possible answer to this question was found either. Here's another summary of the conspirators' objectives regarding Firdaus and Intisar, based on the text. 1. Forced marriages as a tool of control. The conspirators aimed to prevent Intisar from marrying Sami, the son of a wealthy man, because of class prejudice and family honor. They arranged 2 sham marriages. Intisar with Hassan Mahjoub al-Hilali, a politically connected man's son. Firdas with Osman al-Taib, a wealthy business magnate. These marriages were presented as lawful under Sharia but were secretly concluded in a private office, exploiting guardianship law and religious authority. 2. Motives behind the plots. For Intisar, to break her resistance and enforce obedience as a submissive Muslim wife. To erase her rebellion and prevent her love relationship with Sami. For Firdas, Osman's motives were largely lust and power, buying a young girl for sexual gratification. Some conspirators justified it as a way to block Sami from marrying Intisar, since Islamic Sharia law forbids father and son marrying the same sisters. 3. Methods and alliances. Bribery and collusion. Hajj Muhammad confessed to receiving bribes from Hassan's father and Osman al-Taib. Manipulation of Sharia. Guardianship laws were exploited by Omar, the sister's half-brother, to sell them into these marriages. Use of evidence and blackmail. Photos and recordings were gathered to accuse Intisar of adultery and immorality, strengthening the conspirators' case in court. 4. Intended outcomes. For Intisar, complete submission, pregnancy by Hassan, and permanent separation from Sami. For Firdas, total control by Osman, reducing her to a sex slave, which ultimately led to her tragic end. Both sisters were stripped of autonomy, illustrating systemic abuse of religion and law for greed, lust, and social dominance. Here's a concise summary of the key conspirators and their roles based on the document. Primary conspirators. Osman al-Taib, wealthy tycoon and mastermind behind multiple plots, including the forced marriage and brutal abuse of Firdas. Motivated by lust, revenge, and patriarchal control. Used bribery, Sharia rulings, and violence to enforce obedience. Omar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir, half-brother of Intisar and Firdas, acted as fraudulent guardian. Sold his sisters into sham marriages for money and collaborated with Osman and Hassan. Later implicated in kidnapping and gang rape. Hassan Mahjoub al-Hilali, obsessive suitor and alleged husband of Intisar. Conspired to enforce Sharia obedience verdict and consummate marriage through coercion. Worked with spies and corrupt officials. Mahjoub al-Hilali, politician and father of Hassan. Provided political cover and financial backing for forced marriage plots. Imam Maulana Sheikh Marzouk, religious authority who legitimized sham marriages and helped the Islamic court in issuing obedience verdicts. Instrumental in using Sharia law to justify coercion. Hajj Muhammad, witch doctor and manipulator, confessed to orchestrating both marriage conspiracies. Used black magic and intimidation for influence and profit. Supporting figures. Fada Karar, Mahjoub al-Hilali's secretary, acted as witness and accomplice in espionage and intimidation. Tia Coco, Jigar, Nisar, spy network leaders and operatives hired to track Intisar and Sami. Abu Shakura, gang leader, his thugs were Dosa, Doka, Borma, criminals involved in kidnapping Mona, mistaken for Intisar. Corrupt police officials, accepted bribes, enforced obedience verdicts, and covered up crimes. Sharia court judges and Grand Mufti issued rulings and fatwas enabling forced marriages and punishments. Nature of plots. Forced marriages. Intisar with Hassan Mahjoub al-Hilali. Firdas with Osman al-Taib. Both arranged without consent, legitimized by religious authorities. Kidnapping and abuse. Firdas kidnapped, starved, raped, and tortured under the verdict of obedience. Intisar targeted for abduction and forced marriage consummation. Institutional and occult support. Religious fatwas, corrupt police, and witchcraft reinforced patriarchal oppression. Why do the conspirators decided to marry Badriya with the good citizen? The conspirators' decision to marry Badriya to the good citizen was not driven by love or her personal choice. It was part of a calculated scheme rooted in coercion and blackmail. According to the text, blackmail and leverage, Walid, who identifies himself as the good citizen, had incriminating evidence against Omar, Badria's brother, involving heinous crimes such as kidnapping, rape, and corruption. Walid demanded two things in exchange for his silence: a sum of money and Badria's hand in marriage in a halal Islamic contract. This ultimatum was framed as, "When the money is in my hands, I will attend to my order number 4. Remember, your beloved sister is an imperative demand for me to keep my mouth shut." Patriarchal control. Omar agreed because, under Islamic law as interpreted in the Sharia, he was considered Badria's legal guardian and had the authority to arrange her marriage. Omar also justified his decision to marry Enisar to Hassan by claiming he wanted to protect family honor and prevent his half-sister from being deceived by her wealthy lover, Sami, citing examples of poor girls ruined by such relationships. Underlying motives. This arrangement served multiple purposes: silencing Walid, safeguarding Omar's reputation, and reinforcing a system where women's autonomy was stripped away under the guise of honor and legality. Excerpts from the conspirators' reasoning in justifying the third forced marriage of Badria and Walid. Now, let's go back to our emergency meeting. As my dear brother-in-law Omar informed you all, this is a crucial time for all of us. The issue we are about to discuss is important to everyone present here. As I mentioned before, our whole lives are at stake. It is not only our lives in danger, but also a matter of our names in society. These wicked and adulterous boys and girls, when they saw that we had defeated them in the Sharia court, resorted to extortion. They sent a young man named Walid Hamza, who was no less evil and deceitful than them. Badria felt as if a sharp knife had pierced her heart when she heard her new boyfriend being insulted by the woman who claimed to have married another woman. This evil person came here 2 days ago and claimed to be the good citizen who directed Inspector Hussein and his brave cops to the recent crime of kidnapping and rape committed against the innocent girl. So, Omar was forced to write 2 confession papers. In the first paper, he confessed his involvement in the hideous crime. In the second paper, he indicated that he was arrested and released by Inspector Hussein because of the large bribe that was paid jointly by Mr. Osman Al-Taib, Mr. Majub Al-Halali, Maulana Sheikh Marzouk, and Hajj Muhammad. When the woman said these words, Badria heard the surprised voices of many men in the room. Many harsh voices shouting insults and obscene words. First, she heard Maulana Sheikh Marzouk shouting at the top of his voice and saying the curse of God and his angels on him and his family. Then she heard Hajj Muhammad cursing her boyfriend Walid, saying in a loud voice, "The son of a bitch, I will send him my powerful demons and make him run through the streets naked, eat from the filthy trash, and sleep at night inside the dirty garbage containers." Suddenly, there was complete silence when Badria heard a strong blow on the table. The beating was followed by another powerful blow. Soon after, she heard the woman's musical voice shouting angrily, "Cowards, stop it. We are all involved in this seemingly insurmountable problem. We must either solve it or go to jail together." Another silence followed. Badria has her doubts again. How could a woman have this physical strength that enabled her to hit the table with such masculine power? No answer to her question was found. This evil blackmailer has 2 requirements. He demands 10 billion Sudanese pounds and Omar's sister. "Excuse me, sir," Maulana's voice says that he wants Omar's sister as a wife, slave girl, or maid. The woman sarcastically says you are a mom for more than 50 years, and you still don't understand why a man desires a woman. In order to satisfy these 3 needs, the male desires the female. Badria was disturbed when she heard the misogynistic attitudes that came from another female. "I don't care what the blackmailer does to the girl Badria. This is his demand, and we have to fulfill it, or we will go to jail. When we give her to him, it is up to him to marry her, to enslave her, to make her his maidservant, or even to rape her to death. I am ready to pay the amount," and Omar agreed to hand over his sister to Walid Hamza. "Now the remaining 3 of you must go tomorrow and meet these adulterers and whores and settle the deal with them." "What do we do if they refuse to hand over the confession papers of Omar?" asks the voice of Mr. Majub Al-Halali. "Inspector Hussein will accompany you and will show those bad boys and immoral girls some official papers issued by Sharia court judge Maulana Abdul Mohsen Taha. According to those papers, he will force the wife Intisar to follow him to the house of her legal husband, Mr. Hassan Majub al-Hilali. When we have her in our hands, we can threaten them to hand over Omar's confession papers, or we will gang rape her, kill her, and burn her corpse into ashes. Are you serious about your threat? Mr. Majub al-Hilali asks again. Yes, of course, I'm serious, or do you want us to go to jail? Please, friends, do not include me in such an evil plot. I am well known as a man of clean business. How can I deliver a girl to be raped and then killed? Says the voice of Haj Muhammad. I too would like to be excluded from this evil plot, says the voice of Maulana Sheikh Marzouk. I do not think it is wise to do what Mr. Osman al-Taib suggested, says the politician's voice. I have a good idea. Haj Muhammad suggests we should cancel the 2 marriage contracts that we did with Intisar and Firdaus. Then we have to release the imprisoned bride of Mr. Osman al-Taib. The notorious womanizer Haj Muhammad made the above proposal because he remembered his promise to Princess Siham. Frida lied to him and told him her name was Siham. Moreover, the sorcerer knows that he can lose nothing. In response to his suggestion, Badriya heard a powerful beating on the table, which made her jump out of her hiding place. It also led to a sudden silence within the room. This time the silence extended to 5 minutes. Badriya thought that the evil conspirators had fled in fear and left the angry woman alone. Her thought was proven wrong when she suddenly heard the woman's sweet voice shouting loudly, scolding, and cursing everyone using extremely dirty words. Shut up, you cowardly and damned men. I will fuck you and beat you all if you try to pull yourselves back. Badriya is shocked when she heard the woman say that she will have sex with every man in the room as punishment for his fear. Doesn't she already have another wife that she claims to enjoy honeymooning with? Since she has a gay marriage with another woman, why does she want a man to fuck her? Before she can find an answer to her wonder, the sweet voice resumes its threats. I swear by God Almighty and the divorce of my other 3 wives that I will not release my 4th wife Firdaus. No amount of intimidation could force me to break up with her. She is my lawful wife number 4, and as long as I live, she will remain in my ropes. Even if I have to spend the rest of my life in prison, she will still be my wife. How do I allow another man to sleep with my wife? Answer me. Would you allow one of your wives to spend 5 minutes alone with another man? We seek refuge in God from the work of Satan, says the voice of Maulana. How can we allow that? Our holy prophet Muhammad himself would not allow this to happen to one of his 13 wives because he said, no man and woman can isolate themselves in the company of each other without Satan being their 3rd partner. May Allah bless you, Maulana, for reminding us of this important prophetic hadith. Accordingly, you must listen carefully to this plan. The woman communicates her words in more angry voice. No suggestion, objection, or change is allowed. It should be implemented as I planned it. These are 3 checks issued in the names of Maulana Sheikh Marzouk, Haj Muhammad Abakr Morsal, and Syed Majub al-Hilali. The total amount is £10 billion. Tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. the bank will open. After withdrawing the money from the bank, you should all come here, including Police Inspector Hussein, and ask for the girl Badriya from her mother Sakina. I need some explanation, says Mr. Majub al-Hilali. How can we convince the mother to allow her daughter to accompany us to a stranger she does not know or has not seen before? Who asked you to convince the mother or her daughter? What you have to do is show them a verdict of obedience against a disobedient Muslim wife issued by the Sharia court judge Maulana Abdul Mohsen. Where does this verdict of obedience come from? Maulana Sheikh Marzouk asks. You don't have to bother with the source of this document now. I will arrange it myself. Excerpts about the 3rd forced marriage. The important thing now is to give the girl Badriya in a permissible halal Islamic marriage with the blackmailer Walid Hamza. Where's that damned fucking boy now? Haj Muhammad asks. Inspector Hussein can sign for him. We have Maulana Imam al-Jami al-Kabir as a recognized mazun of marriages, the wali of Badriya, her guardian brother Omar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir, and the 2 witnesses, Haj Muhammad and Syed Majub al-Hilali. What is missing then? How to do this without considering the girl's reaction or even her mother's objection? Says Mr. Majub al-Hilali. Excuse me, sir, says the woman's voice sarcastically. Why didn't you think about the reaction of that girl, Intisar, and her mother's objection when you agreed to conduct her marriage contract for your son Hassan without her consent and presence? Badriya listens with great astonishment to the fabrication of a third evil scheme of marriage. She understood that she was the victim of the new plot. Now she can feel what her two half-sisters, Intisar and Firdos, felt when they learned that they got married to men without their consent or presence. After that, there was a silence for 15 minutes. During that period, she learned that she had married Walid. She loved the idea but hated the way she got married. She understood that she was no longer a free girl, but a married woman. So, she started laughing and crying at the same time. With this mixture of contradictory, ambivalent feelings of anger and joy, she left her hiding place, walked to her room, closed the door behind her, and fell into an uncomfortable sleep full of sweet dreams and frightening nightmares. Badriya's reaction and resistance to the forced marriage are portrayed as deeply conflicted and emotionally intense. Initial shock and realization. When she overhears the conversation revealing the scheme to marry her off without consent, Badriya is astonished and feels the weight of betrayal. She realizes she is now the victim of the same injustice her half-sisters, Intisar and Firdos, endured. This awareness sharpens her sense of vulnerability and anger. Emotional turmoil. Upon learning she has been married to Walid without her presence or consent, Badriya experiences ambivalent emotions. She loves the idea of being married to Walid, yet hates the way it happened. This contradiction leads her to laugh and cry simultaneously, reflecting a mix of joy and rage. Her mental state becomes unstable. She retreats to her room and falls into an uneasy sleep filled with sweet dreams and frightening nightmares, symbolizing her inner conflict. Resistance and inner resolve. Although she does not physically fight at that moment, her thoughts reveal a growing determination to resist the oppressive system. She recognizes the hypocrisy and cruelty behind these three forced marital unions and begins to see her struggle as part of a larger fight against patriarchal collusion. Later passages suggest that Badriya's resistance manifests through strategic thinking and solidarity, such as planning to hide Intisar from the police and discussing escape routes, indicating her shift from passive victim to active resistor. Here's an expanded analysis of Badriya's character based on the extracted passages. 1. Initial portrayal, innocence and vulnerability. Badriya begins as a silent and fearful figure, overshadowed by the oppressive environment around her. Her hesitation to speak reflects the deeply ingrained patriarchal norms that demand women's silence. When she finally questions Shakusha's motives, why he comes only to frighten them, her trembling words reveal a duality, vulnerability and courage. This moment is pivotal because it shows her transition from passive endurance to active resistance, even if tentative. Her fear is not weakness, it is the backdrop against which her bravery shines. 2. Symbol of gendered oppression. Shakusha's mocking response, "Fear suits her," underscores the systemic dismissal of women's voices. Badriya's experience illustrates how intimidation is weaponized to maintain control. Her position in the narrative becomes emblematic of the gender dimension of oppression, where speaking out is both dangerous and revolutionary. 3. Emotional oscillation, joy and dread. Badriya's journey is marked by stark emotional contrasts. Preparation phase, she is the center of joy, glowing with anticipation, surrounded by girlfriends who act as beautifiers and encouragers. Lantern light symbolizes intimacy and warmth, and the atmosphere hums with whispered laughter and perfume. Emergency phase, the same lantern becomes a beacon of dread. Friends transform into protectors and strategists, shielding her from imminent danger. Badriya shifts from being a radiant bride-to-be to a target of patriarchal violence, highlighting how love under oppression oscillates between liberation and peril. This duality, every smile carrying risk, every kiss demanding courage, makes Badriya's arc deeply poignant. 4. Complicity and contradiction. Her complexity deepens when we learn she once collaborated with her mother Sakina to harm Intisar by bribing a witch doctor. This act of envy and selfishness contrasts sharply with her later vulnerability, painting her as a morally ambivalent character. She is not a one-dimensional victim. She embodies the contradictions of survival in a coercive system, sometimes resisting, sometimes perpetuating harm. 5. Psychological turmoil. After discovering her own coerced marriage, Badriya experiences ambivalent emotions, laughing and crying simultaneously. This mixture of anger and joy reflects her fractured psyche. She loves the idea of marriage, but despises the way it was imposed. Her nightmares of grotesque kidnappers and predatory men further reveal the trauma embedded in her subconscious. 6. Thematic significance. Badriya's arc amplifies the novel's central themes. Patriarchal control. Her coerced marriage mirrors the fates of Intisar and Firdas, reinforcing the systemic nature of female subjugation. Resistance and solidarity. Despite fear, she finds strength in her circle of friends, who evolve from playful conspirators to guardians of survival. Moral complexity. Her earlier complicity juxtaposed with later victimhood challenges simplistic notions of innocence and guilt. Badriya's resistance differs markedly from that of her sisters, both in timing and in nature. Badriya's resistance. Initially, she sided with the conspirators, even facilitating their plans against her half-sisters. Her betrayal was rooted in family tensions and manipulation by patriarchal figures. Her resistance emerges later as a turning point of repentance. She breaks down when confronted by Walid and admits her guilt. To prove her loyalty, she reveals the conspirators' emergency meeting at her house, exposing their schemes to force sham marriages on Intisar and Firdas. This act is strategic and deliberate, signaling her shift from complicity to active opposition. Her sister's resistance. Intisar. Her defiance is immediate and physical. When police come to enforce the obedience verdict on her sister Firdas, she tries to obstruct them and suffers slaps and kicks for resisting. Later, her resistance becomes existential. She disguises herself as a boy to escape forced obedience and ultimately challenges divine authority before attempting suicide. Her struggle is intense, continuous, and deeply personal. Firdas. Her resistance is more passive. She does not fight physically when confronted. Instead, she endures silently, even feeling guilt for the harm caused. Her lack of active resistance contrasts sharply with Intisar's boldness and Badriya's late repentance. In essence, Badriya's resistance is delayed and tactical, motivated by remorse and a desire to undo harm. Intisar's is fierce and proactive, escalating from physical defiance to radical self-assertion. Furdas's is subdued and fatalistic, shaped by despair rather than confrontation. The escape of Badriya. Badriya's escape is described as a deliberate and urgent act to avoid being taken by force under the Sharia court's verdict of obedience. When she realizes it is early morning, around 6:15 a.m., she decides to leave before these evil men arrive to drag her to her husband. Her plan is to hide first at her grandmother's house until mid-morning, around 9:30 a.m., and then move to Intisar's house, where Walid and his friends are waiting. She quickly gets out of bed, takes a shower, dresses, and runs away from her home, as if to escape from her kidnappers and rapists. Police intervention was feared because it represented a direct and violent enforcement of patriarchal authority under the verdict of obedience law. The text highlights several reasons for this fear. 1. Threat of forced removal. The sisters, Intisar and Firdas, were terrified by the prospect of being dragged away by armed policemen and delivered to husbands they did not choose. This was not a symbolic threat. The law allowed police to physically compel women to obey marital authority, treating resistance as a crime. 2. Brutality and humiliation. Accounts describe women being slapped, shackled, and humiliated during arrests. Police framed their actions as duty, but their behaviors, such as threats to tie and beat women, turned enforcement into a form of public degradation. The police car itself became a moving prison, stripping women of dignity and autonomy. 3. Lack of legal protection. Even sympathetic characters like Sulla, a lawyer, admitted the limitations of the legal system. Once the Sharia court issued its verdict, police intervention was inevitable after repeated notices. This left women feeling powerless against state machinery. 4. Fear of criminalization. Women feared being treated like criminals for asserting their right to refuse a forced marriage. Firdaus's inner thoughts during her abduction reveal shock and disbelief that her resistance was criminalized. 5. Collusion with patriarchal power. Police acted as agents of the court and family conspirators, reinforcing patriarchal control. Their presence symbolized the reach of oppressive structures into private life, making escape seem the only option. 6. Consequences beyond arrest. The fear extended to what awaited them in the House of Obedience, a place associated with captivity and sexual violence. This made police intervention not just a legal act, but a gateway to further harm. Here's a concise summary of the consequences of police intervention for Badriya, based on the novel. Immediate impact. Fear and disruption. Police involvement is triggered by rumors of her romantic meeting with Walid. This creates an atmosphere of surveillance and danger, disrupting her sense of safety and intimacy. Emotional turmoil. Badriya experiences deep sadness and vulnerability, crying for her lover and her brother's troubles. Her emotional state oscillates between fear and fleeting intimacy when Walid comforts her. Social and legal risks. Threat of punishment. Under patriarchal and religious law, her relationship risks being reported, leading to severe consequences such as forced marriage, detention, or worse. Community pressure, gossip, and societal norms amplify her vulnerability, framing her love as rebellion and exposing her to honor-based violence. Response and resistance. Fragility of freedom. The looming threat of arrest underscores how fragile personal autonomy is under systemic oppression. Symbolic meaning. Police intervention symbolizes the fusion of state power and patriarchal control, where love becomes criminalized and freedom precarious. Badriya's ordeal reflects the novel's critique of misogynistic norms and the risks of defiance. Here's a focused summary of the consequences of police intervention for Intisar and Firdaus, based on the novel's context. Police intervention and its impact. Intisar. Arrested in Khartoum after defying patriarchal and religious restrictions. Faces sexual harassment, police brutality, and imprisonment. Her incarceration in Kober Central Prison for Women exposes her to torture, abuse, and dehumanization. The intervention strips her of personal freedom, intensifies her suffering, and forces her to confront the harshest realities of patriarchal law enforcement. Firdaus. Similarly targeted by police for resisting societal control. Experiences violence and persecution, reinforcing the dangers women face when they attempt to assert independence. Police action against her highlights the systemic use of law enforcement as a tool of patriarchal oppression. Broader consequences. Police intervention is not just punitive, it is symbolic of the state's role in enforcing obedience. It transforms personal acts of love or resistance into criminal offenses. Both women's experiences illustrate how law enforcement perpetuates misogyny, silencing female voices and reinforcing patriarchal dominance. Their suffering becomes a testament to resilience, showing the courage required to resist even under brutal repression. Here's an imaginary stage play-style reconstruction of Firdaus and Intisar's arrest and imprisonment, designed to capture the emotional beats, dialogue, and atmosphere. Dramatic scene: the arrest and imprisonment of Intisar and Firdaus. Scene 1. The arrest. Lighting: harsh white spotlight on Intisar and Firdaus, surrounded by shadows. Red flashing lights pulse faintly, mimicking police sirens. Sound: distant shouts, boots pounding pavement, the metallic clatter of rifles. Police officer, shouting, "Stop! You are violating the law of obedience." Intisar, defiant, trembling, "My only crime is love. You cannot chain that." Firdaus, grabbing her hand, "Run, Intisar. Don't let them take your voice." Stage direction: officers close in, batons raised. The women are dragged forward, their cries drowned by the roar of authority. Scene 2. The prison gates. Lighting, dim, cold blue wash. A looming iron gate dominates the stage. Sound, the clang of chains, the echo of heavy doors slamming shut. Guard, mocking, welcome to Cobra Prison. Here, obedience is not a choice, it is survival. Furtus, whispering to Intisar, they want to break us. But even here, we must resist. Intisar, voice cracking but resolute, they can cage our bodies, but not our spirits. Scene 3. Inside the cell. Lighting, flickering yellow bulb overhead, casting long shadows. Sound, rats scurrying, muffled sobs from unseen prisoners. Intisar, to herself, almost a prayer, every wall is a witness. Every bruise is a testimony. They will know we endured. Furtus, clutching her arm, bruised, we are not alone. Our pain is the echo of countless women silenced before us. Stage direction. The two sisters sit side by side, backs against the wall. A faint beam of light filters through the barred window, symbolizing resilience. Emotional beat. The scene crescendos with silence, broken only by the sound of their breathing. The audience is left with the image of two girls bound physically but unbroken in spirit, embodying resistance against systemic cruelty. Excerpts from the friends' endless talk about their next step. Meanwhile, the kidnapped bride's other brother, Osman Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir, has just arrived from Kassala City. He became very angry when he learned about the evil plots that had been committed against his two sisters Intisar and Furtus. He said that if he had been there when those 5 policemen came and dragged away his sister Furtus, he would have allowed them to take her only over his dead body. After uttering these angry words in front of his mother Sarah and sisters, Frida and Intisar, he vowed that he would not calm down until he took revenge on the evil old man who kidnapped his sister Furtus under the pretension of halal Islamic marriage. On the same day as his arrival at 5:30 p.m., the friends gathered together at the house to plan their next move. They think they have collected enough evidence against some of their enemies that it will send them behind bars for the rest of their lives. Sulla is the first to speak. Before we send the confession papers of Omar to the police and the newspapers, we must use them to force Mr. Osman Al-Taib to divorce Furtus. Frida said, I do not agree with you. If we do that, she continued, we'll be in the same boat as those conspirators. We will indirectly accept their conspiracy as a legal marriage. Moreover, these confession papers of the criminal Omar relate to the kidnapping and rape of another innocent girl. Therefore, we can't use them to solve our problems. Intisar said, morally speaking, we cannot use a convicted criminal case to solve a justifiable crime. Frida asked, what do you mean by justified crime? I meant to say that the law condemns the crime of kidnapping and rape of the Al-Wash gang and justifies the crime of kidnapping and rape of Mr. Osman Al-Taib and his gang. Sammy said, I agree with Farida and Intisar and would like to add that if we delay these confession papers, Inspector Hussein and my father might find a way to escape their crimes. But these confession papers only owe 3 people. Frida asked, what about the other conspirators? Sulla said to the others, we will expose them and send them to prison through the recorded confession of Hajj Muhammad. Intisar said, I have one doubt. If Mr. Osman Al-Taib is arrested, what will happen to Furtus? Frida asked, what do you mean to say? Intisar replied, I mean to say whether he will continue to cling to her as his legal wife. Sulla said, yes, he will undoubtedly do that. Intisar said then he will take revenge on her. He would keep her as his wife as long as he was in prison. What more could he do to her, said Frida angrily, than he had already done? Sulla said there is no need to worry because the High Court can invalidate the legality of the void marriage contract. Before anyone could make a remark on Sulla's statement, they heard the door open and Walid Hamza entered. He is holding 2 local newspapers in his hands. He then stated that these newspapers reported that the mysterious magician and the leader of his gang, Al-Wash, were arrested last night. Sammy and Sulla quickly snatched the newspapers from his hands. They both read the articles out loud. When they finished, silence filled the room. Sulla then angrily shouted, this is just a cover-up story. Most likely, Walid said, Omar told Inspector Hussein of my visit. So, the corrupt police inspector came up with this cover-up story to protect himself. Sammy asked, "Do you mean to say that he did not arrest the leader of the gang Al-Wa'ish and the hammer Shakash Wad Al-Haram?" Frida said, "I don't think there is an arrest. It was just a fabricated story invented by Inspector Hussein." Sulla said thoughtfully, "It cannot be just a story invented by Inspector Hussein. For sure Al-Wa'ish and Shakash were arrested. But Shakash cannot be the magician, Omar." Inisar asked, "Then from where did Shakash come into the picture? And who is the hammer Shakash?" Sulla said that this question is difficult to answer. "I think Walid's visit Omar led Inspector Hussein to arrest one of Al-Wa'ish gang's men." Intisar said, "I think through this guerrilla man Shakash, Inspector Hussein learned where his ringleader was hiding." "This is remarkably close to the truth," Sulla said, "but I would probably add to that Inspector Hussein had forced Omar into selling one of the hiding criminals, and that person happened to be a man named Shakash." Inisar asked how Shakash got to Omar's house, as the newspaper reported that the police had caught him as he was breaking into his house. Sulla said, "This is an exceptionally good question, and I think Inspector Hussein asked Omar to invite Shakash to his house. And when he came, Inspector Hussein arrested him and nailed on him the crime of the sixth criminal, the magician." Frida asked, "Why don't we go to the police or the newspapers and hand them the confession papers of the criminal Omar and the recorded confession of the fraudster, the witch doctor Hajj Muhammad?" Sulla said, "We can't do that now." "Do you mean to say that these confession papers are of no use to us?" Walid asked. The lawyer Sulla said, "We should not jump to a hasty conclusion so quickly. Everything we have said is an assumption. We must first try to verify our assumption." Walid asked how we could check our assumptions. Sulla said, "We should try to collect some information about the hammer Shakash. The only person who can tell us about him is the magician Omar." Sammy said, "I don't think it's safe to send Walid to Omar again." Inisar said, "You are right, Sammy. It seems that the criminal Omar's door has been closed in our faces." Sulla said, "Yes, the police inspector Hussein found an scapegoat and put Omar's crime on him and thus acquitted him of the crime of rape and kidnapping of the innocent girl." The good citizen Walid Hamza asked, "Do you think Omar's sister Badriya can help us?" The advocate Sulla said, "Yes, of course. She can at least tell who has visited her house recently." Intisar asked the good citizen how you can meet and talk to her. Walid said, "I am supposed to meet her on Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Frida asked how she agreed to meet you and where you are going to meet her. Walid said, "Well, we became friends. We decided to meet at her blind grandmother's house at 7 p.m. on Thursday." Walid Hamza, "Have you become a friend of our sworn enemies?" Intisar inquired anxiously. "Not at all. However, before I met Omar, I had the chance to sit down and talk to his sister, Badriya, in her room. I found out that she is an overly sweet and kind girl. That's why I agreed to make her my girlfriend. We all know that if a girl has a blood relationship with a criminal, it does not mean that she consents to and participates in his criminal activities." Sulla said, "This means that you love and trust her." "Yes, I love and trust her." In this case, Sulla said, "We have to wait until the lover Walid meets his beloved Badriya." Intisar said, worriedly, "I don't think it's a good idea to wait any longer, otherwise, those bad guys will plan another evil scheme and escape from their crimes and do punishments." The lawyer Sulla said, "But we have no other choice but to wait for Walid to meet his new girlfriend, Badriya. You people, you all just sit here and waste your time in endless talk and in the end do nothing." Those words were said by Brother Osman, who opened his mouth to speak for the first time. All this time he remained silent and impatiently listened to the endless conversation of the friends. "I believe that what was taken by force can only be returned by force. So instead of sitting here talking endlessly, we should go to that evil criminal man Omar and force him to tell us where the vile old man is keeping my sister Firdaus. When I get my hands on that demonic old creature, I know how to take my sister away from him." These angry words of Osman made all friends bow their heads and shut up. Frida broke the silence. "My dear brother Osman, I know that you love your sister Firdaus, and we all here love her as much as you do. Also, I know what happened to her is an outrageous act and an intolerable injustice. Moreover, we are all aware that what happened to our sisters Inisar and Firdaus is an organized crime committed by evil gangsters who manipulated Sharia law to achieve their own selfish goals. If we resort to violence, we may be imprisoned and thus let those evil conspirators escape from their crimes and due punishments. Therefore, my advice to you, my dear brother Osman, and to everyone present in this room, is that the first thing that we must do is to resort to the law to achieve justice and punish those evil conspirators. If that will not avenge us from our enemies, then we can think of other means to free our sister Firdaus from that wicked old man Osman al-Taib and protect our sister Inisar from that corrupt politician Majub al-Halali and his selfish son Hassan. These wise words of Frida not only soothed her brother Osman's anger, but finally put an end to the endless talk of the good friends. The friends learned about Inspector Hussein's cover-up story through their own suspicions and discussions. Salah expresses doubt about the person arrested by Hussein, suggesting that this will help them expose the fabricated narrative. Intisar then proposes that they meet the innocent girl and inform her about the cover-up, which Hussein created to conceal his corruption, and the large bribe he received from Saad Osman al-Taib. Salah agrees to this plan, and the group decides to act on it immediately. Police Inspector Hussein fabricated the cover-up story as a desperate attempt to protect himself and maintain the illusion of authority after the scandal involving bribery and corruption came to light. His motivation was twofold: preserve reputation and authority. Hussein feared that the exposure of his involvement in bribery would not only destroy his career, but also undermine the credibility of the police force. By creating a false narrative, he hoped to deflect attention from his misconduct and present the operation as a legitimate success rather than a compromised mission. Avoid severe punishment. The stakes were extremely high. Bribery and collusion with criminals were offenses that could lead to dismissal, imprisonment, and public disgrace. Fabricating a cover-up story was his way of buying time and mitigating the fallout. Consequences in the plot. The cover-up had cascading effects. Immediate failure. The fabricated story quickly collapsed under scrutiny. Witnesses and evidence contradicted Hussein's claims, later leading to his dismissal from the police force and imprisonment. Escalation of chaos. His actions intensified public outrage. When the truth emerged, the crowd's anger boiled over, resulting in riots and destruction in the courtroom, symbolizing the collapse of trust in law enforcement. Impact on other characters. The exposure of the cover-up linked Hussein to Osman's bribery scheme, which dragged him deeper into the broader conspiracy of forced marriages and systemic abuse. This connection reinforced the novel's critique of corruption and patriarchal power structures. Thematic significance. Hussein's downfall illustrates how corruption corrodes institutions and amplifies injustice, leaving vulnerable individuals, like Mona and Firdaus, without protection. After Badriya recounting the details of the emergency meeting of the conspirators in her house, the friends decided to act quickly, with Salah and Walid heading to the Gadaref Times to seek help from a journalist. Here's a detailed summary of Salah and Walid's visit to the Gadaref Times based on the novel. Context leading to the visit. After Badriya recounted to her half-sisters and their friends the details of the emergency meeting of the conspirators, the group of friends realized they needed to act quickly. Salah and Walid took the initiative to leave immediately and head to the headquarters of the Gadaref Times, the city's oldest and most widely read newspaper. Their goal was to meet the journalist who had previously interviewed the innocent girl central to their case and seek assistance in contacting her. Purpose of the visit. Primary objective: to enlist the journalist's help in reaching the girl who had been interviewed, as her testimony was crucial for exposing the truth and countering false narratives. Underlying motivation: the friends were deeply concerned about injustice and wanted to ensure the girl's voice was heard in the unfolding legal and social drama. Description of the Gadaref Times. It is portrayed as a major institution in the city, employing hundreds of journalists and staff. The building is a hub of activity, with numerous visitors daily for publishing articles, placing advertisements, and engaging in civic discourse. Tone and significance. The visit symbolizes a turning point in the narrative. It reflects Sulla's leadership and legal acumen as he spearheads efforts to gather evidence and allies. Waleed's involvement underscores the solidarity among the Friends in their fight against corruption and societal oppression. The urgency of their mission highlights the gravity of the situation and the reliance on media as a tool for justice. Sulla and Waleed's visit plays a crucial role in shaping the narrative because it introduces both practical and emotional turning points. 1. Emotional and moral support. Their presence offers Intisar and Sami a sense of solidarity during a time of extreme vulnerability. Sulla, as a recognized lawyer, reassures them with legal advice and moral encouragement, while Waleed adds a voice of empathy and realism. This moment contrasts sharply with the hostility and coercion they have faced from patriarchal figures, highlighting the theme of friendship as resistance. 2. Legal and strategic guidance. Sulla uses the visit to outline possible escape routes and legal strategies. He warns that refugee status within Sudan is unlikely and advises fleeing to South Sudan or Egypt if necessary. This advice underscores the gravity of their situation and foreshadows the couple's eventual flight from systemic oppression. 3. Narrative function. The conversation during the visit deepens the reader's understanding of the broader injustice, forced marriage, religious coercion, and the criminalization of love. It also introduces tension. While the Friends plan to help, spies of Hassan begin trailing them, signaling imminent danger and escalating suspense. 4. Symbolic impact. The visit symbolizes a fragile alliance against entrenched misogyny. It contrasts two worlds, one of oppressive laws and another of human compassion and resistance. This duality reinforces the novel's central conflict between liberty and patriarchal control. In short, Sulla and Waleed's visit is not just a friendly gesture, it is a catalyst for hope, a strategic pivot, and a narrative device that heightens both urgency and thematic depth. The journalist who interviewed the innocent girl Mona is Tariq Shams al-Din Haddad. The text mentions that Mona read her recent interview with this famous journalist in the Gedaref Times newspaper, and later in the dialogue, Shams al-Din himself confirms Sulla and Waleed that he conducted the interview with her. Mona's story, as revealed in the interview, is deeply tragic and layered with systemic injustice. 1. The kidnapping and assault. Mona was abducted and taken to a brothel where she endured brutal gang rape by 6 men. Among them was Omar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir, known as the Magician, who played a central role in the crime. This ordeal left her physically and emotionally shattered. 2. Public reaction and media frenzy. After her rescue and recovery in hospital, Mona gave her statement and spoke to journalists. Her harrowing account gripped the public, sparking outrage and demands for swift justice, including the execution of the 5 gangsters and the capture of their leader. The press also pushed for answers about the mysterious 6th criminal, the Magician, whom Mona identified as the most handsome among her attackers, contradicting the official narrative that had misidentified him. 3. Conflict with authorities. Mona's testimony clashed with Inspector Hussein's version of events. She suspected a cover-up, as the inspector appeared to protect certain criminals and resisted media requests to interview them. This tension highlighted corruption within law enforcement and the influence of bribery in obstructing justice. 4. Mona's courage. Despite her trauma, Mona agreed to assist in exposing the truth. She consented to accompany Sulla and others to identify Omar, the Magician, for arrest, even though she feared retaliation. Her bravery became pivotal in challenging the fabricated story and pushing for accountability. Here's a focused analysis on Mona's role in exposing the cover-up and confronting the Magician, based on the text. Mona's role in exposing the cover-up. Discovery of hidden truths. Mona acts as the catalyst for unveiling the concealed wrongdoing. She pieces together fragmented clues, demonstrating persistence and critical thinking. Moral compass. Her actions are driven by a strong sense of justice, positioning her as the ethical counterpoint to the Magician's manipulative schemes. Strategic revelation. Mona doesn't expose the cover-up impulsively. She carefully chooses the moment to maximize impact, ensuring the truth cannot be dismissed or silenced. Confrontation with the magician. Direct challenge, Mona confronts the magician head-on, refusing to be intimidated by his power or influence. This marks a turning point in the narrative. Psychological strength. Her confrontation is not just physical but intellectual. She dismantles Inspector Hussein and the magician's arguments and reveals contradictions in their narrative. Symbolic victory. This clash represents more than personal triumph. It underscores the theme of truth prevailing over deception. Here's another detailed summary of the visit of Salah, Walid, and the journalist Shams al-Din to the house of Mona, the first innocent girl. Context and purpose of the visit. After a harrowing trial and Mona's traumatic experience as a victim of kidnapping and rape, Salah, a recognized Sudanese lawyer, Walid, the good citizen who reported the crime, and Shams al-Din, a journalist, decide to visit Mona at her home. Their primary aim is to reassure Mona about the safety. They want to seek her cooperation in exposing Omar, one of the notorious criminals involved in her abuse. Atmosphere and emotional tone. The visit is emotionally charged. Mona is deeply distressed and bitter about her ordeal, feeling that Walid's intervention prolonged her suffering rather than ending it quickly. She lashes out at Walid, saying his actions caused her more harm than the criminals, as she now faces lifelong shame instead of a short-lived tragedy and quick death. Mona breaks down in tears, expressing hopelessness. "My life is like glass shattered on rocks. Even God cannot make me happy again." Her mother also cries loudly, amplifying the sense of despair. Salah and Walid are moved to tears, bowing their heads in sorrow, while Shams al-Din tries to console Mona, urging her to think of the future and forget the past. Key conversations. Revelation of events. Walid recounts the entire story, from the discovery of the crime to his efforts to protect Mona, emphasizing his role in saving her life. Discussion of the magician. Salah proposes that Mona accompany them to Omar's house and report him to the police as one of her kidnappers and rapists. Mona hesitates, fearing Omar's violent retaliation, but Salah assures her that 6 armed policemen will accompany her and protect her. Mona's decision. After initial resistance, she agrees to cooperate, showing courage despite her trauma. Underlying themes. Justice versus vulnerability. The visit underscores Mona's fragile state and the inadequacy of the justice system, which failed to compensate her or even acknowledge her suffering. Friendship and solidarity. Despite the risks, Salah and Walid stand by Mona, offering emotional support. Patriarchal oppression. The narrative reflects systemic misogyny. Mona's ordeal is compounded by societal shame and institutional corruption, symbolized by the release of Omar through bribery. Excerpts about the visit of Salah, Walid, and Shams al-Din to the house of the first innocent girl. The first kidnapped and raped innocent girl is known as Mona Salah el-Din Hashim. As Omar told Shakash, she is an incredibly beautiful girl and has an exceptionally sexy body. Being beautiful is not a crime because beauty is a physical virtue and a blessing from God. Unfortunately for Mona, her beauty has been spoiled by evil men who kidnapped and raped her. She was a virgin before these monsters kidnapped her and took her to their satanic ringleader, where he defiled her honor and took away her virginity. Now her name has been conflated with the crime of shame. In Indian society, a rape victim is expected to kill herself. But in Sudanese society, the rape victim will be treated as an open girl. This means that she has lost her virginity and has an open pussy. Every man will want to have sex with her, but none of them will agree to marry her. This is how society understood the heinous crime committed against the first innocent girl, Mona. No young man would marry a girl who had been subjected to such brutal rape. Although everyone referred to her as the innocent girl, in the corner of her mind, he pictured her as a spoiled flower and her beauty tarnished. She was like a rose plucked by the wrong hands. Although she remained for a short time in those filthy hands, they made her stink of dirt and shame and turned her into a rotten apple. On that day, Mona was lying in her bed holding a copy of the Gedaref Times newspaper. She read her recent interview with the famous journalist, Tariq Shams Eldin Haddad, several times. She began to think of her sad story. Her mind is clouded with many dark thoughts. She knows before her rape she was young, beautiful, and virgin, and many young men wanted to marry her. But today she saw herself as a beautiful teenage girl who had a fatal accident that left her legs and hands amputated and her eyes blinded. Who would marry such a completely disfigured and disabled girl? People will only pity her. Mona hated the 6 criminals who brutally raped her and destroyed her life permanently. She wishes she died on that Black Friday when she was brutally raped all day and throughout the night. She had always cursed her ravishing beauty and sexy body, which attracted those evil men to her. She also wishes that she had been born as a blind, deaf, dumb, and ugly girl. The innocent girl Mona was taught from childhood by her conservative parents that love between a girl and a boy before marriage is evil. She was told many times that love would make a girl fall into disgrace. She was made believe that many girls had lost their purity and virginity and brought shame on their families because they fell in love with boys before marriage. So, Mona removed herself from the reach of many young men who tried to win her heart. She was recently engaged to her cousin Kamal. He is supposed to marry her within a few months after she completes the 10th grade. Unfortunately, her fiancé changed his mind and was no longer ready to marry her after learning about the rape. He officially broke off their engagement. He considered his cousin Mona an irresponsible girl. How could she agree to sit in a car with 5 men she didn't know? Why did she stay silent and not scream for help when they kidnapped her? Mona tried to explain to him that they took her by force in their car and did not give her a chance to scream for help, but Kamal did not believe her. She knew and understood that in her condition, only an old man with many wives would marry her. Only such a polygamous elder could agree to marry her. So, she wishes to remain unmarried her whole life, rather than marry an old man. The innocent girl Mona thought of committing suicide, but the fear of going to hell filled her heart. As a Muslim girl, she was taught at home and in school that anyone who commits suicide will go to hell. She knew that her parents are eager to get rid of her as soon as they found someone willing to marry her. Therefore, the first elder to come would be welcomed. Moreover, Mona wished that she could erase those dark memories from her mind. Her mind always remembers that traumatic experience by day and at night reproduces it as a horrible nightmare. She remembered how she begged for mercy in front of her rapist. She fell at his feet and kissed them. She told him to consider her as his daughter. She did everything to move his heart, but he was a man with a stony heart. He did not pay attention to her screams. He tore her clothes into small pieces. He twisted her hands and put them behind her back until he forced her to fall. After forcing her to fall to her knees, he fell on her delicate body and crushed it with his heavy weight. She was like easy prey or a wild deer that had fallen into the claws of a voracious beast. His long nails scratched her face, neck, shoulders, and breasts. He pulled her hair by force and hit her body. She became a helpless victim in the hands of a human beast. He was a sadistic man who enjoyed sex by torturing his helpless victim. Mona hated to remember what he did to her after that, robbing away her virginity and defiling her purity. She felt that she had become so dirty after being repeatedly raped by the monster man. When her 6 kidnappers brutally raped her, she wished they had doused her in kerosene and set her body on fire. They continued to rape and abuse her body all day and night. During those difficult hours, the innocent girl wished that the roof would fall and kill her along with her rapists. As Mona recalled those difficult hours, she heard the doorbell ring. Her mother opened the door. A few seconds later, she saw 3 young men approaching her. Among them, she recognized the man who recently interviewed her. From the smile on his face, she understood that he was going to reveal some new news about the crime. Mona, I have a pleasant surprise for you. Meet the brave man who saved your life. The man who saved my life? Mona said strangely, what is left of my life to be saved by someone? I meant to say this is the good citizen who notified the police and directed them to the crime scene. Mona turned to Walid Hamza and said angrily, You have done me more harm than the 6 evil criminals. If it weren't for you, I would have died on that Black Friday, and no one would have known about my shame. I would suffer for a few hours and die, but because of you, I will suffer for the rest of my life." Mona stopped talking and burst into tears. Her mother also started crying loudly. The two friends Scylla and Walid bowed their heads as tears streamed down their cheeks. Then the reporter approached her ears and whispered, "Have you forgotten what I told you last night?" Shamsuddin said, "Please, dear, think of the future and forget the past." Mona said while crying bitterly, "I have no future. I have lost all hope in life. My life is like a glass that has fallen on rocks and shattered into small pieces. Even God cannot make me happy again. My life ended on that damned day." Scylla said calmly, "You are wrong, Miss Mona. You condemn yourself for a crime you did not commit." The innocent girl looked at Scylla with tear-filled eyes. "At least society and the law have condemned your kidnappers and rapists," Scylla continued sadly. When he saw everyone looking at him, he continued to speak loudly. "But my fiancé's kidnappers and abusers are protected by law, and her rapist is justified by society and religion. Like you, she was kidnapped by 5 men and forcibly taken to an old man who claimed to be her husband. Imagine a 15-year-old girl who was forced to marry a 70-year-old man. Now tell me who is supposed to lose hope in life, you or my fiancé?" Mona did not answer Scylla's question, but she continued to look at him. "Miss Mona, believe me, you have not reached the end of your life. You are still young, beautiful, and with a future. Study hard and forget the past. When you enter the university, you will find young men of your age with open minds. Among them, I am sure you will find your life partner who will make you forget your past. Together you can plan your bright future." When Scylla spoke these encouraging words, a faint smile appeared on Mona's lips. The lawyer Scylla resumed his talk. "I am supposed to give up on life, but I will never give up. I will wait for my fiancé all the days of my life." Mona said to him, "You are very loyal to your beloved girlfriend. Because I love her, I will fight every battle for her. But how do you expect the old man to release her again? She legally married him and became his lawful Muslim wife. I do not accept it as marriage. It was just an evil plot. We have to prove that this is not a legal marriage. It is just another vicious crime like the one committed against you. It was also a crime of kidnapping and rape. The only difference is that what happened to you is a criminal case that is disapproved by society and condemned by law, but what happened to my friend is a justified crime. You had been kidnapped by 5 criminals and taken to their evil ringleader, while my girlfriend had been kidnapped from her home by 5 policemen and taken to the vile old man who imprisoned her in his so-called the House of Obedience." "How could the police kidnap a girl from her home?" Mona asked, surprisingly. "The Sharia court issued a verdict of obedience against my girlfriend as a disobedient Muslim wife and sent 5 policemen to take her by force to her so-called legal husband. The Sharia court judge considered the evil plot to be a valid marriage." "How do you prove that marriage is a conspiracy?" asked the first innocent girl. "You are the only person who can help us prove it." Mona, amazed, said, "How is that possible? I am the most defeated and helpless girl on earth. You have come to the wrong person. Believe me, Miss Mona, there is no one in the whole world who can help us but you. I don't expect you to understand me until you hear the whole story from my friend Walid Hamza, the good citizen who saved you." Then Walid told Mona the whole story from the time he discovered the crime of her kidnapping and rape and reported it to the police until he and Scylla decided to seek her help. And when the good citizen finished, the innocent girl looked at the journalist Shams al-Din and said, "No wonder Inspector Hussein Hassan Hassanein does not agree with my statement about the mysterious 6th criminal, nicknamed the Magician." Shams al-Din said, "Yes, you are right." "Now, Miss Mona," Scylla said, "we want you to come with us to Omar's house and then report him to the police as the hidden criminal, one of those kidnappers and rapists who abused you. How do you expect me to stand up to this notorious criminal? He will do anything to escape from capture. He might hurt me or kill me in some other way. You will not face him alone. You will have no less than 6 policemen fully armed and ready for any possible dangerous encounter with the hiding 6th criminal, the Magician." Mona insistently said, "In this case, I am ready to go with you guys. Here's what the text reveals about the visit of Salah, Walid, Mona, and Shams al-Din to the police station and their report about the magician's hiding place. Context and purpose of the visit. The group went to the police station to expose the whereabouts of the criminal nicknamed the Magician, who was one of Mona's kidnappers and rapists. Salah explained to Mona that they needed her to accompany them to Omar's house, the magician's hiding place, and then identify him to the police as the hidden sixth criminal. Key details of the encounter. Initial discussion. Salah reassured Mona that she would not face the criminal alone. He promised that at least 6 armed policemen would be present to handle any danger. Mona agreed to go after being assured of protection. Meeting with Shams al-Din. At the newspaper headquarters, Salah asked journalist Shams al-Din for a private place to discuss the matter. They moved to the interview room, where Walid introduced himself as the good citizen who had previously directed the police to the crime scene. Revelation about the magician. Walid confirmed the identity of the magician and explained that Mona had earlier described him in her interview with the journalist Shams al-Din as the most handsome among her kidnappers. He also revealed corruption. The magician had been released earlier due to a large bribe paid by Osman al-Taib to Police Inspector Hussein. Police action. After their report, the plan was to proceed to Omar's house with Mona and the armed policemen to arrest the magician. In the text, Sergeant Mohammed Abdul Nabi becomes serious, orders his men to prepare for an arrest, and then hangs a banner stating, "This police office is officially transformed to the Rowena area. Accordingly, no further complaint will be accepted here." This shows that the sergeant is not merely reluctant, but actively enforcing a policy to stop receiving complaints. The reason appears to be a shift in the office's operational focus, transforming it into a specialized zone, Rowena area, which means handling complaints is no longer part of its remit. His priority is law enforcement and arrest operations, not administrative grievance handling. The sergeant's decision to transform the police office into the Rowena area and stop accepting further complaints has profound consequences for the complainants. 1. Immediate denial of justice. By declaring that no further complaints would be accepted, the sergeant effectively shuts down any legal avenue for the victims to seek help. This means their grievances, whether about extortion, kidnapping, or abuse, are dismissed without investigation, leaving them vulnerable to further harm. 2. Escalation of criminal activity. The conspirators, upon learning of the sergeant's stance, proceed with their plan to pay off the blackmailer and arrange for the teenage girl Badria to be handed over to her husband Walid. The absence of police intervention emboldens them, allowing exploitation and violence to continue unchecked. 3. Psychological and social impact. For complainants, this decision reinforces feelings of helplessness and betrayal. They approached law enforcement expecting protection, but instead face institutional complicity. This deepens their despair and perpetuates the cycle of fear and silence within the community. 4. Broader symbolism. The sergeant's act symbolizes systemic corruption and patriarchal control, the very themes the narrative critiques. It shows how authority figures can manipulate legal structures to serve power rather than justice, amplifying the novel's portrayal of institutional failure. Salah, Mona, Walid, and Shams al-Din managed to persuade Sergeant Abdelnabi by using a combination of persistence and strategic reasoning. Collective pressure. They approached him as a united group, which gave their complaint more weight and credibility. Appeal to duty. They emphasized the sergeant's responsibility to uphold justice and follow proper procedures, framing the acceptance of their complaint as part of his official duty. Moral argument. They highlighted the seriousness of the issue and its implications for fairness, making it difficult for him to dismiss their concerns without appearing negligent. Practical persuasion. They reassured him that accepting the complaint would not cause undue trouble, presenting it as a straightforward and necessary step. The text provides a detailed account of the tense meeting at the police station involving Sergeant Abdelnabi and the 4 visitors, Salah, Mona, Walid, and Shams al-Din, who came to report Omar's hideout. Key points of the conversation. Purpose of visit. The group arrives with the urgent intention of exposing Omar's location. Their tone reflects both fear and determination, as Omar is implicated in heinous crimes, including kidnapping and rape. Sergeant Abdulnabi's approach. He begins by questioning their motives and the credibility of their information. His interrogation style is stern, emphasizing the legal consequences of withholding or fabricating details. He insists on clarity before committing police resources. Revelations about Omar. Waleed plays a pivotal role here. He recounts his prior encounters with Omar at a brothel where Omar and his gang assaulted an innocent girl, in the Sharia court where Omar attempted to manipulate proceedings. Waleed's testimony shocks the police room, reinforcing the urgency of the report. Emotional dynamics. Sulla, as a lawyer, frames the disclosure in legal terms, stressing the need for swift action. Mona expresses moral outrage and fear of retaliation. Waleed's calm but firm stance contrasts with the other's agitation, adding weight to his credibility. Outcome of the talk. After intense questioning, Sergeant Abdulnabi acknowledges the gravity of the allegations. He warns them about the risks of confronting a criminal network and signals that a raid will be organized, though he makes it clear that the operation will be dangerous and uncompromising. Excerpts about their visit to the police station prior to the raid at Omar's house. Meanwhile, there is only 1 week left for Al Maidan police station to be transferred to High Rowena locality. The main reason is the difference between the moral behaviors of the inhabitants of the two regions. Since the day the police station was established in the High Al Maidan, 90% of the complaints were submitted by the people of the High Rowena neighborhood and 10% of the residents of the High Sora neighborhood. Accordingly, the High Al Maidan was considered a peaceful area. Therefore, Sergeant Mohammed Abdelnabi is busy sorting things out, as he must submit his final report to the police headquarters before the transfer takes place. Anyone who came to him sent him away because the police station officially ceased operations in that area. While he was busy drafting his final report, he heard a knock at the door of the police station. He stopped writing and looked up. He saw 3 young men and a beautiful girl standing at the door of his office. Since he became a policeman cadet 25 years ago, he had never seen such a beautiful girl come to complain. So, he politely told them, if you are looking for the kindergarten, it is on the other side. Please turn around and cross the road, and you will see the junior kindergarten written in big golden letters. After that, he bowed his head and continued the course of his report. Excuse me, sir. Mona spoke quietly. We have come to see you. Sergeant Abdelnabi said impatiently, if you are one of those boys and girls who call themselves social workers and then go to people in their offices and ask unnecessary questions, I have no time to waste with you guys. Today, I am remarkably busy. Sir, we are neither kindergarten visitors nor social workers, but we have a criminal complaint. Complaint against whom? Against me or one of my men? Sulla said, not at all, sir. It is neither against you nor against your policemen. It is against a notorious criminal living in this area. Not today, guys. I told you today I am busy. Please come another day. But it is very urgent. It cannot be postponed to another day, said Miss Mona. Go to another police station. Am I the only cop in town? Sir, Sulla said, we offer you a golden opportunity to make yourself famous. Who told you that a policeman, by arresting a criminal, becomes famous or gets paid? I dragged 2 or 3 criminals every day to jail, but I never became famous even in this small area. Shams al-Din said out loud, Sir, have you heard of the famous journalist Tariq Shams al-Din Haddad? Yes, I heard about him. In fact, yesterday I read his last interview with the innocent girl. I am the one, and this innocent girl is Mona, who got kidnapped and raped by Al-Wash and his 5 gangsters. When the sergeant heard these words, he was surprised, rose to his feet, and shook hands with the visitors. I am happy to see you face to face, my innocent daughter. I am overly concerned about your problem. Praise be to God who saved you from those human monsters. Dear sir, Mona said quietly, thank you. But I understood from the interview that you still don't agree with Inspector Hussein's words about the 6th criminal, who is called the Magician. Sulla said, that's why we are here, sir. I do not understand what you mean. I mean to say the notorious criminal magician is still at large. Inspector Hussein Hassan Hassanain is responsible for the crime of kidnapping and rape. Sir, said the journalist, this is the good citizen who directed the power of the police to the brothel and tavern where the crime occurred. How do you prove to me that he is a good citizen? Sir, said Sulla impatiently, if you want us to prove everything to you now, there will be no need for a judge and a lawyer. I myself am a recognized attorney. So, my humble advice to you is to accompany us to the house of the magician Omar, and the innocent girl Mona will recognize him as one of the criminals who kidnapped and raped her. When this is done, your duty as a police officer is to arrest him and take him to jail. Then the police interrogators will extract the truth from him in the interrogation room. Suddenly, Sergeant Mohammed Abdelnabi became serious. He rose to his feet and ordered his 4 policemen to be ready for arrest. He then hung on the door a large banner which read in big letters, "This police office is officially transformed to the Rowena area. Accordingly, no further complaint will be accepted here." Before the police raid at Omar's house, the scene is tense and secretive. The household is described as cramped and dimly lit, with a flickering lantern casting shadows that heighten the sense of danger. The people present include Omar, the host and strategist, deeply involved in criminal and conspiratorial activities. Haja Sakina, Omar's mother, who is at the kitchen helping in preparing lunch for the guests. The Eritrean maid, Zahara, who is the main cook in the kitchen. Mr. Osman Al-Taib, an influential and corrupt figure, accompanied by Miss Sakia, a nurse acting as his secretary and mouthpiece. The atmosphere is fraught with fear because everyone knows if discovery could lead to imprisonment or worse. The gathering last night was not casual, it was an emergency meeting of conspirators, plotting to destroy incriminating confession papers and protect themselves from exposure to the police. Here's what the text reveals about the arrest of the magician and Mr. Osman Al-Taib in Omar's house. Police involvement. The operation was led by Sergeant Muhammad Abdul Nabi and his team of officers. They acted after complaints were filed by a journalist and an innocent girl who had been victimized. Location and timing. The arrests took place in the magician's house during a police raid. Omar's mother later informed others about the raid, which caused some accomplices to flee to a nearby village. Targets of arrest. The sergeant and his officers arrested Omar, identified as the magician, Mr. Osman Al-Taib, and Zakia, Osman's private nurse and personal secretary. Omar was heavily implicated in heinous crimes, and Osman was accused of bribery and collusion. The raid and capture. The arrest was part of a police raid treated as an urgent emergency. Orders authorized brutality and lethal force if necessary, with suspects to be treated as extremely dangerous. Sergeant Abdul Nabi led the operation with 4 officers. They stormed the location and captured Mr. Osman Al-Taib, described as the evil old man. Omar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir, referred to as the magician and half-brother of several victims. Zakia Karamala, Osman's private nurse and secretary. All 3 were taken to the dungeon and thrown behind bars after the raid. Context and themes. The arrests exposed systemic corruption, bribery, abuse of Sharia guardianship laws, and collusion between wealthy elites and law enforcement. The narrative frames Osman as a symbol of patriarchal power, Omar as a manipulative enforcer, and Zakia as a conflicted accomplice oscillating between care and complicity. Here's an imaginary dramatic scene about the arrest of the suspects. Scene: the arrest. The night was heavy with tension, the streetlights casting long shadows across the rain-slick pavement. A distant siren wailed, growing louder with every heartbeat. Suddenly, tires screeched as 2 police cars swung into view, blue lights flashing like angry eyes in the dark. Freeze! The shout cracked through the silence, echoing off the brick walls. Officers spilled out, boots pounding, their torches slicing through the gloom. The suspect stood rigid, breath shallow, eyes darting for an escape that no longer existed. "Hands where I can see them," barked the lead officer, voice sharp as steel. The suspects hesitated, just for a second, before slowly raising trembling hands into the cold night air. The metallic click of handcuffs followed, final and unforgiving. As they led the suspects away, the rain began to fall harder, washing the street clean but leaving the weight of the moment behind. Justice had arrived, and it wore a badge. Excerpts about the actual police raid and the arrest of the suspects. In the meantime, on the next day, when the conspirators discovered that the girl Badriya had run away from the house, Syed Osman Al-Taib insisted on the need to pay the blackmailer Walid Hamza the money and tells him that the teenage girl, Omar's sister, who is married to him in his absence, would be handed over to him as soon as possible. They shall do that when they find out where she is hiding. Maulana Sheikh Marzouk, Haj Muhammad, and Syed Majub al-Hilali went to the bank, withdrew the money, and went to Intisar's house. Upon their arrival, the mother, Sarah, told them that her son, Osman, and her two daughters, Farida and Intisar, were not at home. However, the guests insisted on waiting for them to return. The three conspirators hesitate to reveal the purpose of their visit to the mother. They suspected that the old woman might not be involved in the extortion business. Besides, the gang leader, the old man, severely warned them not to be deceived by his son Sammy and his evil friends, and also ordered them not to hand over the money until Omar's written and signed confession papers are handed over to them. Meanwhile, Mr. Osman Al-Taib and his secretary, Nurse Sakia, are waiting at Omar's house for their return. The old man is lying on a large royal bed, and next to him sits his beautiful and sexy private nurse. Omar is drinking beer and smoking a bango, a kind of a Sudanese marijuana. At the same time, a tape recorder is playing some of the magician's favorite vulgar songs. In the kitchen, the Eritrean maid, Zara, and the mother, Haja Sakina, are busy preparing lunch for the rich business tycoon and his beautiful secretary Zakia Karamala. At noon, the peaceful atmosphere was disturbed by heavy knocking at the outer door. Mother rushed to the door. "Who is there?" "Police." "What do you want from us?" The mother slurred her words. "Open the door," shouted one of the cops. "We are women here and there is no man in the house. I'm going to count from 1 to 10, and if you don't open the door, we'll force it open." There is no response from within, and so the counting begins. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The frightened mother opened the door and stood aside to see the police. Immediately, 5 armed policemen, 3 young men, and a beautiful girl entered the house. The policemen immediately spread out in different directions in search of the 6th criminal, the magician Omar. The first person found is the notorious criminal himself. He's hiding under the bed. The policemen dragged him outside and handcuffed him. When the innocent girl, Mona, saw him, she screamed loudly that he was one of her kidnappers and rapists. Then she kicked, slapped, and spit in his face until the cops pulled her away before she could kill him. The search resumed again, and the lovely nurse Sakia has been found hiding inside a large closet. She is dragged outside and forced to kneel beside the criminal Omar. The policemen continued their search again, and the 3rd person was discovered hiding inside the toilet. The police knocked hard on the door, but he did not answer. As a result, Sergeant Muhammad Abdul Nabi started counting from 1 to 10. When the count was over and the door was not opened, he ordered his men to demolish it. 2 policemen held each other for a 1 to 3 count and rushed towards the door, shoving it with their shoulders, breaking it open. The 3rd suspect was found inside the toilet, shaking in extreme panic. The police pulled him out and forced him to kneel next to the 2 other suspects. The search has resumed again. Omar's mother and her Eritrean maid Zahara were found hiding in the kitchen. The maid is a beautiful teenage Eritrean refugee girl named Zara Abdi. Neither she nor the mother were arrested. The search has resumed. When no more people were found hiding anywhere, the search was halted. Frightened, Haja Sakina cried and pleaded with the policemen not to arrest her sick son. Police officers ignored her pleadings. The suspects were then tied up and taken to the police van outside the house. Meanwhile, many people gathered outside to witness the arrest of the notorious kidnapper and rapist, the magician Omar Ibrahim Mustafa Jabir, and the famous business tycoon, Mr. Osman Al-Taib, and his nurse and beautiful secretary, Zakia Karamala. End of the 7th video.